All right, we're live,
Yeah.
ready to rock and roll. How's it going?
Oh, I'm going. I forgot my token today. I
Oh,
got
your
it now
token.
though.
You
There we
got it.
go. Boom.
Boop. One coin inserted, ready to go. I'm
Ready to
stoked.
go. Man, but that Discord though, those levels, I'm actually way above
Dude,
that.
yeah,
One
let's chat
coin. I think
about
I'm at
that for a
5 coins
second.
now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're up to level 5. You're doing awesome.
hmm Yeah,
Yeah,
well, it's because all the posting for the news and everything, trying to keep up to
true.
date. Got all that Tokyo Game Show stuff I've been posting in there. Unfortunately, I only know like 10% of what's happening because I don't understand the Japanese talk shows going on right now. Unfortunately, not yet.
Unfortunately.
So it's all a bit of a mystery still. Have
Very
been some
cool.
exciting releases though I've seen that
Yeah.
I've been posting between a few of the channels. So I know you've seen a couple, commented on them.
Yeah, I have. That's awesome. I'm excited to see what we got going. But I want to chat about that Discord real quick because you've been rocking that, and it's looking so rad. You're freak.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I've been putting a lot of work into it.
Yeah, you still freaking out about
Sorry,
that
Mike.
bug?
No, the cats finally found it and now it's over here and I was trying to make sure they weren't gonna jump up onto the desk because like my new synth is over here and then I've got my laptop and then I've got my PC and they're like looking all over the place and they're ready to go for it. So I was just nervous because my cat went to a spot they don't usually go to and I
Oh
thought he was
man.
gonna hop on the desk and he would have went right on my brand new synth I had to get replaced yesterday. So
Ah. Well, I'm glad you got that fixed. Get back to making some sweet new jams.
yeah, right. Hopefully soon, hoping.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you got. See what you can come up with. Get your
Yeah,
get
got
your
some big
soundtrack
opportunities
going.
coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to start working on soundtracks more for games and stuff. I'm looking forward to getting back into it. And there's so many new games that are going to be coming out that look epic that like what I want to do is just have like games in the background, especially with all the Discord stuff going on, like just watch somebody play a game and I'm gonna
Yeah.
have two screens soon. So watch somebody play their game on one channel and then I'm on the other one, or on the other screen making the music to go to it and everything. So
Yeah. Very
yeah, I don't
cool.
know. I think it'll be good.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That'll be so cool for you. Get some sweet new soundtracks going, and then when we make a video game together, then we'll be like, bam, you nailed it on the soundtrack.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it'd be good. Yeah. Been trying to find people to make games with, honestly. I have a few game ideas myself. I would love to get out there, but yeah, it's hard getting on those teams. So,
Yeah, I get that. It's like I have game ideas. I'm like, that would be so cool, but I know nothing about making video games. I can't animate or draw or anything. So it's like, well, I have the ideas, so that's a start.
yeah, that's like the big thing is finding a team. Like, I know people here and there for that, but it's hard to find people that are like dedicated to it if there's not like a full thing set up in place all ready to go.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Trying to start from scratch. Get a Kickstarter
Yeah,
going.
yeah, well, that's the thing. I know this cool website. It's called like indiedb.com, and like you can find a bunch of like people on there, but a lot of people are looking for like super specific roles, and finding
Mm-hmm.
audio roles has been difficult, even though like that's what I want to go for, soundtrack, sound design, voiceover stuff. But yeah, I don't know. One of these
Yeah,
days,
that'd be cool.
we'll,
I'm
we'll
looking
get
out for
started
you.
ourselves. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Cool. Well, welcome to the show today. Today we're talking about open worlds and the greatest game of all time. So, kind of a two-in-one knockout combo, but I think this could lead to some good stuff. So where do you want to start? Do you want to knock out greatest games first, or do you want to hit up open worlds?
So I think that it would make sense to talk about what some of our favorite games are because since your favorite game is included for what, we had to bring the open world into it. So
Yeah.
we'll go over some of the favorite games and then we'll go to open world after that and talk a little bit about it. Or you can expand on it there. Who cares? We're here to have
Yeah,
fun. It's
exactly.
just some loose fun here.
I get
So
it. I get it. Okay.
I'll let you build up to yours, I guess, right?
Oh
So I
man.
should go first. Or no, go for it. If you're ready. If you're ready
I don't
for it,
know,
go
because
for
I,
it.
I want to hear what you have to say first before I drop it. And I mean, I kind of already talked about it last time, but I could go into so much detail with it. So I guess, do you want me to go off now, or do you want to go first and then I can go off?
I mean, I don't mind. I have a
Oh,
few
man.
games in mind, but I would be curious to hear your points because I know you've been hyped about it. So
Yeah.
if you're ready to go for it, go for it.
Okay. I love chatting greatest game of all time because it's such like a divisive topic because you're like, somebody's like, oh, yeah, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is the greatest game of all time. And it's like, eh. And then you're like, what? And then it just like leads to these big debates. So I always love having like civil, rad chats about greatest games of all time, and I'm sure that you and I can keep it cool. I don't think we'll get mad at each other, right?
Definitely not. No, I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many different reasons to have a lot of different favorite games. I mean, I wasn't just going to throw down one. I know you have your super favorite, but I mean, for me, it's really hard to classify like a favorite favorite. There's so many different reasons to have favorites and different genres and everything. So that's why it'll definitely be more than just a 15-minute conversation. Yeah, this is my one favorite title, and this is why, and that's it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm ready to hear what yours is with I know what game it is, but that'll be the
Okay.
open world one. So what you got for me?
Okay, so thinking greatest games of all time, I always think Red Dead Redemption 2. Okay, so Red Dead Redemption 2, when it was coming out, I was like already so stoked for it. I was like, I love the first game. I'm really excited for the second game. And then it came out, and like, dude, it like sucked up my life and like completely consumed me. I put like 200 hours into it in like a month and a half. It was terrible, but it was so fun. So the thing is when I finished that game, it caught me for so many different reasons. And like when I was like playing the game, I was like, this has got to be one of the greatest games I've ever played for a few different reasons. And I think I'll start with the reasons, and I'll explain them. I'll make this super organized. Okay, so I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is the greatest game of all time because I think it has the story. The story was phenomenal, and then the gameplay I felt like was the perfect everything that I wanted it to be and more. And then I felt like the open world itself had just so much going on. And like I said, I'll dive into more of these specifically, but
Definitely.
just kind
No,
of
I got
organizing it. Okay, so let's see. I got story, gameplay, open world, and then just kind of like the feeling it gave me, like as I was playing, was just like something I'd never felt before, and so it was super awesome. So starting with the story, so I loved the story of Red Dead Redemption 1. I thought it was like the perfect cowboy story. Like I love like the Fistful of Dollars and Good, Bad, and the Ugly movies. Like they're awesome, and I feel like these were just like the perfect video game version of the epic cowboy story. And like the characters were phenomenal. Like I love John Marston, I love Dutch Vanderlyn. I think Dutch Vanderlyn is definitely one of the best video game villains of all time, and that's a completely different thing. But anyways, I love the characters of the world.
interesting.
Yeah, I know, right? Very interesting because it's one usually not a lot of people think of, but um yeah, just the characters were just amazing. I loved their arcs and just where they went and what was happening. It was all just so interesting. And so when Red Dead Redemption 2 was coming out and it was a prequel, I thought that was really interesting because I really didn't, I don't want to say any, I'm not going to say any spoilers. So if you haven't played it, don't worry, you're okay. But so I thought
But I actually haven't played the first two. I didn't play Red Dead 1 or the zombie one that
I
like
don't
they
think
re-released, you know?
yeah, I don't think I ever actually played the zombie one, so I don't know.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've wanted to. I just actually haven't yet. But anyways, so the first game ended in a way that was I thought a really satisfying conclusion, but then also made it difficult. It was like, okay, where do they go from here? So when Red Dead Redemption 2 was announced, it was like, okay, what are they gonna do? Like, are they gonna continue the story that way, or are they gonna jump back? And that's what they ended up doing. They jumped back and kind of told the beginnings of like John Marston and Dutch Vanderlyn and that whole situation. I thought it was awesome. I was like, oh, that's a great place to go because there's a really interesting story here, and it's interesting doing prequels like that because you can totally ruin it or you can really build upon it. I think like Borderlands the pre-sequel is a good example of that. Is they built upon Handsome Jack and made him an even better character. Maybe Borderlands pre-sequel wasn't the best Borderlands game, but from a story standpoint, I thought they did a good job of building upon Handsome Jack and making him a more interesting character. And I feel like they did this exact same thing with Red Dead Redemption 2. As a story, they took it and they told the story that we knew existed, but we didn't know the whole story. And I thought it was great to hear the whole story because then we got a whole bunch of new characters that were so awesome. I mean, Arthur Morgan is probably one of my favorite video game characters I've come across. It's just like his story was phenomenal, and like by the end I was literally like in tears. It was just like such an emotional journey. Like, oh man, like games usually don't hit me that hard, but it's just like I was so invested in it. I loved the characters. It was so well written and so well done. It's just like by the end there was like, I remember this one moment. I was like going to like one of the final things, and like just like the game just did this really awesome like kind of reflective moment, and it was so amazing. And like, dude, it just like hit me so hard, and it was like so emotional. It's just like, dude, this journey I'd been on, it just like had been building up to this point, and then I was finally getting to that point, and it just was like all coming together, and just, oh, it was so well done. Just like all the different elements and the characters and the way they interact. Oh, it was all there. It was so solid. Okay. So, sorry, I'm totally just going off. I love this game so much,
No,
man.
you're good. I get it. There's so many I mean, it won so many awards. I mean, you're not wrong to have picked it, you know? I mean, there's so many reasons
Yeah,
people love it so much, but then, there's also reasons people don't like it. But there are so many
exactly.
reasons to love it, and it's definitely one of the best out there. Oh my God, my cats are going crazy. I don't know what this bug thing they're looking for isn't even over here, and they're trying to go places they never go.
Oh no.
Animals, literal animals over here.
Literally.
Literally, they are
Oh
animals.
no. All
This
right.
cat is a literal animal.
Literally an animal. I mean, it straight up is a cat, so that
Just
helps.
straight up, actual animalistic animal,
Literal
cat
cat
animal.
action going on here.
Laser taste fall guy,
Oh
or
man.
laser face fall guy. Taser, no,
Taser fall face
taser
guy.
fall face guy. There you go. Yeah, there
Dude,
you
that
go.
was
That's what it
crazy.
was.
That
Oh
was
my God, that was such a fun.
that was ridiculous.
I think Fall Guys might actually have to be the best game just because of that
Oh,
moment
really?
that created the opportunity for taser fall face guy moment.
Yeah, I think we need to decide his actual name because I swear it changes every single time we say it.
We couldn't remember we first had combined it the one way, but then we ended up switching up how we were going about it. So I don't
Yeah,
know where we landed in the end, but
that's
it
okay.
became a thing. It's our new trend.
Yep. And just for those who don't know, which is probably most of you, we were playing Fall Guys the other day and just being crazy and talking Guardians of the Galaxy and ended up combining some crazy names and made up a stupid character.
Yeah.
So
It was great.
it was
Absolutely great.
fun. It was fun.
Such a fun stream session.
Oh
That
yeah.
was your first time on, wasn't it?
On your channel?
Fall Guys.
Oh yeah, Fall Guys. So I actually had something sad happen with that one. It just like started crashing on me and just like would not work at all. So I
Really?
actually had to
After the night we played,
mm-hmm.
or that? Oh man.
Yeah, it just like would not work at all, and so I ended up just being like, "Can I get a refund? I'd rather like spend that $20 on something I know is gonna work consistently." And well, and so I got my money back. I was like, "Oh, this was so fun,"
Now we
but
can't be fall beings together.
no, I was really sad.
Oh
I
man.
know. I was like, I'll have to break his heart on stream so we can all see his sadness
Man.
when I tell him.
I have to go now. I can't do this anymore.
Just like your like little icon, just boop, and just like you're gone. You're
Right.
like. Well, I guess
Kicking you
I'll.
out of the Discord. You're no longer allowed.
You ban me.
Yeah, you're banned. You can't be
Oh,
moderator. You're banned. You're
that's all
out.
right. I have
No more
access to.
roles for you.
Oh, but I came up with like
Yeah,
half of them.
I know. You can't get up to your precious Final Fantasy character any longer. No more.
I want to though. I love Rikku. She's my favorite.
Right? Where's she at?
It's
I think
fun.
she's 14. She's either 14 or 17 on the
Yeah,
list.
she's up there. She's up there.
I made sure to give her a good level for you.
I appreciate it. That was nice. I actually just got that game on my PlayStation 4, and I told my wife, I was like, "You've never played a Final Fantasy game, have you?" She's like, "No, I don't think so." And we're playing Kingdom Hearts, and so I was like, "Well, I just got Final Fantasy 10, and I think you might have to play that one." She's like, "Really?" And I was like, "I mean, I would really appreciate it, and you can finally see why I really enjoy that game so much." And she's like, "Okay." So we'll see if that
If you
happens.
saw in the Square Enix section on the Discord, I posted they're remaking a handful. They like just confirmed one
Oh,
or two of
really?
them being remade. Yeah,
Like
here.
just barely?
Yeah, it was for the event that's going on right now, the Tokyo Game Show.
What?
Let's see. Developers, Square Enix, they
Square
just
Enix.
confirmed Final Fantasy 16 is reportedly coming sooner than people think,
Okay.
is their announcement for it. So Square Enix has reportedly been working on Final Fantasy 16 for at least 4 years now, according
Yeah.
to this most recent post about it. And then there's something else they posted in a dual thing with Nier as well, I think it was, and I think that one's under the Tokyo Game Show one. Let's see.
Oh, about near
Ah
Automata.
man, it's one of these. Yeah, I forgot. I didn't
Okay.
post the previews with it for these for some reason. I don't know why.
Let's
I don't know
see.
which one it is, but yeah, they were
Near
talking
Replicant.
about some Final Fantasy stuff that they're going to be adding. I know that there was some previews for some other Capcom things going on.
Oh, very
Um,
cool.
yeah, because Square Enix had a specific.
section.
specific like allotted time. Yeah, same like how
Yeah.
Capcom is, or they just had today, earlier today. I think it was like 6 o'clock in the
Oh wow.
morning my time, maybe 8 a.m. my time.
Yeah.
I can't find the specific post on here on the page, but I know
Huh.
it's in the Discord. It's one of those links I posted. But yeah, they posted a couple things going on about Final Fantasy at the moment.
Very cool. I'd actually like to see a Final Fantasy VI remake. That would be really cool. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Can't be too picky.
There's so many they could go back. I mean, I'd be curious to see all the originals redone, like
Oh yeah.
fully reimagined from, NES times. It'd be crazy.
Yeah, that would be really
Absolutely
cool.
crazy. Be
I'd,
a
I'd be into that.
whole new ball game.
Yeah, because they like totally redid Final Fantasy VII, which I actually still haven't even played that one.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah, but it like looked really different. The biggest thing with that one is because it's like they're kind of doing like an episodic thing where it's like, oh, here's part one, and then like wait a year and a half, and we'll give you part two, kind of thing. And so I'm kind of like waiting until they come out with like the ultimate pack where it's like all the parts they do just in one. It's kind of what I'm waiting
Okay.
for. I
So
mean,
kind of like the Silent Hills collection or like the Metal Gear
yeah,
Solid collection, something like that.
yeah. And so it's just like I don't know. I don't know how they're doing it because it's like part one you buy it for like $60, and it's like okay, does that include part two, or is part two going to be a whole nother $60 thing, or is it going to be like a 15 $20 upgrade, things like that, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah, I guess that's
I don't
true.
know.
And it might be hard with discs too. I mean, it's rare that anything with discs wants to double up anymore. Red Dead was the first game I've seen, and I don't know how long that had two discs. That blew my mind. I was like, whoa,
That one
they
was
really went
crazy.
for it.
Oh my gosh, yes, they went
Whole
crazy.
installation disc, man, that
Yeah,
was intense. That took forever to install too. I remember
yeah.
that was just like endless
Dude,
installation. It was
that
wild.
day, I remember that day so clear because I had pre-ordered Red Dead on Amazon. And so like I knew it was going to be showing up about like the same time I was going to get done with my college classes because I was going to college at the time. And so like they had like the worldwide release and you could like pre-ordered it, like pre-downloaded it on your PlayStation or whatever, and then like at midnight at whatever time zone then you could like start playing the game. And so I like show up to classes the next day and everybody's talking about it. And like, dude, I stayed up all night playing Red Dead. I'd pre-ordered it and had it downloaded and I was like waiting forever and like got to play it. And I was like, oh, I'm so jealous. I want to go home and play it. I was like keeping an eye on like
Yeah.
the UPS tracking the whole day. Like, oh, when's it going to get here? And then I got there and then like I go like put it in. It's like 3 hours to download. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I
Oh, it
had to
took
go through the
forever.
painful experience of deleting like half of my data off of my PlayStation as
Oh,
well,
yeah.
to make space for all that. So, I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, that's why digital is great, especially with that timed release, like you'll be able to play when the game comes out.
Yeah.
That's what has me like uncertain about the PS5. Like I would love to go digital only because like I typically buy digital only, but
Yeah.
I need a way to play my classic. So if it's going to be full backwards compatible, then I mean, as much as I hate to say it, I'm going to have to go with the disc, ready version because like my PS3 is dead pretty much. I hate to
Yeah.
say it. I mean, I can usually play my classics on it, but it's one of those things where it's barely working right now, so like I kind of want to
Mm,
try to preserve it in case I can
yeah.
bring it in again, so that way it's not completely screwed.
Totally.
Um, so I don't know. I've been like 50-50 on using it again, and
Mm,
I don't know. Like I would just love to have that PS5 be fully backwards compatible, get back to my old games, because like I still got all the discs.
mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
That digital's good though. Everything is more convenient digital.
Oh, totally. I have a hard time with digital versus physical because like digital it's nice because it's like right then and there you get it. You don't have to like go anywhere. So like that's really nice. But then also you gotta like wait 1,000 years for it to download. Like I mean yesterday I was downloading a bunch of games and it took literally all day long and like even through the night. And so I was like, dude, really? Like I just you gotta wait forever. And then you get like physical where you have to like, oh, whoa, Coolio with the host. Thanks, Coolio. Appreciate it.
What's up? Thank you. Appreciate it, Coolio.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, Coolio. Welcome, welcome. So good to have you.
Glad to have you here.
Yeah. But yeah. So it's just like with Ghost of Tsushima was the first one where I really had a big problem with it. But like
Okay.
usually I like my physical discs. Like with most recent games that have been coming out, I go to my Walmart. I don't want to go to Walmart, but it's the only choice I got. Go to Walmart, get the game, go home, download it, takes all
Yeah.
day, then play it by 5 o'clock that night. But anyways, then with like Ghost of Tsushima, that game was sold out every single time I went to Walmart to go and buy it. It was so frustrating.
Yeah.
And oh, dude, I gotta tell you this story. It was so annoying. So day Ghost of Tsushima comes out, I go to Walmart at like 9 o'clock. It's like pretty early, and so like I show up at Walmart. I like go to the game section, and like there's like a Ghost of Tsushima spot on like behind the glass cases, and I was like, there's nothing here, and so like
What's going on, some Coolio?
oh
Thank you. Sorry,
yes,
just responding to Coolio.
oh yeah, no, I get it. We're doing good, Coolio. Rock on, man. But yeah, no, doing
Excited
very
for
very good.
today's talk.
Yes, yes, for
Alex
sure.
gets to
I'm
talk
so
about his
stoked.
favorite game. He's been talking about Red Dead. He's been getting that chance to go over it.
Dude,
So
I started and then we freaking lost it and we've gone off this rail.
it happens every time.
It
There's so many good
happens.
things to talk about.
Seriously though. Okay, so real quick, let me finish my Walmart Ghost of Tsushima story. So go to
Yeah.
Walmart, go to the game case. It says Ghost of Tsushima, but there's nothing there. And I was like, it's like 8 o'clock on like release day. Like they should have it. And so like
Mhm.
I find some disgruntled Walmart employee working at the games counter, and I'm like, "Hey man, like, do you guys happen to have any copies of Ghost of Tsushima?" He's like, "Well, is it in the case?" And I was like, "Well, no, that's why I'm up here. I just was wondering if you like had any in the back or you hadn't put them out yet." He's like, "Well, if it's not in the case, it's not. We don't have it. So I don't even know why you bothered to come and ask me." I was like, "Oh, cool. Screw you, dude. See ya." He's like,
Rough.
"Really, dude?"
Rough.
Yeah, it was so I just could not believe it. I was so ticked. And so then I was like, all right, maybe I'll pop over to GameStop. I didn't want to go to GameStop. That was why I went to Walmart. But I go to GameStop and then I was like, hey man, like, do you guys have any copies of Ghost of Tsushima? And he's like, did you pre-order it? And I was like, well, no. And he's like, well, if you didn't pre-order it, then I don't have a copy for you. We only have so many copies as we pre-ordered. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And he's like, yeah, just with all the shenanigans going on, then I mean that's not what he said, but keeping it vague.
Yeah,
You all
no,
know
I
what's
get
going
you.
on. And he's just like, yeah, with all that going on, it's just like we only stock as many pre-orders as we get. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense at all. And
Sounds like a friendly town when it comes to the
dude,
games
no,
departments for salespeople.
not at all. These people here are rude. I can't believe it.
Man,
Yeah, and
all you
so
gotta do is get your game on.
seriously though, I wanted to go to Tsushima so bad. I've been looking forward to it for a while, and I don't like pre-ordering games for whatever reason. I don't know why, and so I didn't pre-order it and whatnot. But then,
It's so risky these days. I mean, like you
yeah,
never know what you're gonna get. Honestly, like I was kind of disappointed. Well, we've talked so many times about how I was disappointed with Resident Evil 3. So
yeah,
many people are like it just didn't feel finished and like I don't know. Like I was glad I got to play it quick and I am glad I got a chance to play it, but at the same time, it's like it just wasn't worth that kind of money and
yeah,
I don't know, like it just the pre-order wasn't worth it for sure.
yeah, I get you. But I'm glad you actually brought that up because I just finished that game yesterday for the first time ever.
Yeah?
Yeah, so I picked it up. They had it on the PlayStation sale for like $30. So I was like, okay, like
Oh, wow, already? Yeah, that goes to show you how bad it is
yeah.
then.
And I'm so glad I only paid $30 for it because it's like I'm not going to play Resistance because A, I've heard it's not the best, and B, I don't play online and I don't even have PlayStation now. So it's like I have three reasons right there not to play Resistance. So I didn't even download it because it was like after I bought it, it was like, do you want to download your items? And I like selected just Resident Evil 3 and downloaded just that. And then like Resistance was its whole separate thing. And I just like, nah, I don't want to deal with that. So yeah, so I finished Resident Evil 3 yesterday, and I totally agree with you. I am so glad I did not spend $60 on that because it literally took me 3.5 hours on my first time through. I didn't know anything gameplay wise or like how to, like where to go or what to do. But it was such a linear experience that it was literally not even like I didn't feel like I was exploring Raccoon City at all, trying to like it's like, oh, I need the fire hydrant hose. And it's like, okay, well, there's this one other street to go through. And so you like go through the street and then it's like, oh, look, a fire hose. And then you go back through the one street. And it was so linear. It was like, didn't include like any exploring at all. And it just like wasn't, it's like, dude, really? My first time through takes 3 hours? Like, wow, that was,
Just that one like back alley is like a special like feature, where you could go through the catwalk through like the apartments.
oh, okay, yeah.
And like, because you go onto the roof of the one area, you can kick the ladder down. So that's that ladder that's straight across from where you put the fire out.
Okay,
but
yeah.
like it goes to the back, and then Nemesis corners you there the one time before you go to the train, I think it is, like very last
Yeah.
time you go through there.
Okay.
So like I don't know, like I felt like they used that as like the like, oh, here's our like special spot, but I mean like they took away so much from what even was the original like Resident Evil
Yeah.
3. Like a PlayStation 1 game seemed to contain more area and content than this new one, and
Yeah. They cut out
like
the whole
I
like
remember,
clock tower and like the
yeah, that was
giant worm thing fight.
even the main city though, like, just running through those areas, like the gems, the
Yeah.
gems are
Mm-hmm.
replaced in like just that part of the underground where you go for the subway.
Yeah.
But in the original, you had to go to the news place, and then there was the restaurant, and there was somewhere else you had to go and get all the gems for it.
Yeah.
But that was a whole other area that led to the back to where I believe you went to the gas station and split off to one other spot. And I think that other spot is where you fight the worm dude,
Mm-hmm.
if I remember correctly. But like even having the news station out, like that was huge to lose.
Yeah.
I kind of was really like looking forward to seeing a remake of where they did the that little path where you went back and you had
Yeah.
to put the stone book, and then Nemesis corners you there outside of the restaurant.
Yeah.
Like that was one of my biggest scares was like getting cornered behind him there, like not
Totally.
being able to have a way out. And I was looking forward to experiencing that again. And like I don't know. They just worked over one of my favorite games in such a terrible way and like
Yeah.
cut out so many things that made it great. Umbrella, what's up?
Howdy,
Umbrella
Gibson.
Gibson here. Glad he can make it. We're
I've
talking
never
some
said
Raid
howdy
right
before in my
now.
life, so I don't know why I said that.
I believe that. Red Dead's your favorite game. I don't believe you even one bit. I know you've got cowboy boots stashed somewhere
I have never
away.
owned cowboy boots, and I never will own cowboy boots. But I will tell you, when I would play Red Dead Redemption, I have this bandana I keep in my back
Appreciate
pocket,
it.
and I would wear it over my face like this while I was playing Red Dead. Me and
Yeah.
my buddy, we would cowboy up, and we would play Red Dead. It was so dumb, but it was so awesome. And it
Yeah,
was
you
like,
gotta get in
yeah,
the game.
get real. And it was kind of around Halloween time, and we actually were gonna go to the Halloween store and buy cowboy hats, but they only had like bright red or like white cowboy hats, and we're like, we want like black and brown, but okay. And
Nah,
so
nah.
we probably could have gone to the cow ranch, but I don't think we were like that dedicated to it. We were like, we'll buy like a $10 Halloween costume cowboy hat just to be stupid.
You're close enough to the Wild West, it should be easy. I'm
I know,
disappointed
right?
your area doesn't have more.
And say you see him walking around, that's for sure.
Start a Red Dead campaign like in your town to get everybody hyped on it, and then everybody
There
will
we
just
go.
be like cosplaying it all the time.
There was this one guy, I kid you not, walking around the local university. He was dressed up like he had like the spurs on his boots. He even had a revolver. It was a little scary,
Wow.
but like he like had like the spurs, the hat, and like the jacket that has like the flippy like the little things on the arms.
Wow,
Yeah,
yeah,
he
those
was
little like strand things.
yeah, he was pretty decked out in the cowboy thing, and I was like, that's pretty cool, but also that revolver makes me a touch nervous, but
Yeah,
it
right?
was pretty cool
Oh
looking,
man.
but yeah, brutal. Um,
Yeah,
wow, we are all over the place.
we are. There's just so many good things to talk about. There's just too
Dude,
many.
I know.
So let's see. When it comes to even some of my favorite games, if we're comparing, I actually, it's been a tough decision because I actually just joined a channel earlier, and you had to put what your favorite game is. So like,
Okay.
it's hard because like I said my all-time favorite game is SOCOM 2,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know how accurate that is, but it's so hard to pick. I mean, like I said, there's so many different reasons to have different favorite games.
Oh, totally.
Um, what did Umbrella say?
Play
Play
that
that
shit while it's on a horse.
on yeah, right.
Yeah.
There was that one guy that has that video where he's like rocking on the horse or whatever while he plays, so
Oh,
it's like
man.
it matches his movement. It was funny as hell.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but yeah, I don't know. I said SOCOM too because like I have some of my best like childhood memories on that, like playing games, with like people that like were just friendly towards me because I was a metalhead growing up. Like I mostly was on metal because like that's what my dad raised me on, and I was kind of an outcast for that because everybody was like all about hip hop and everything, and like that just wasn't what I listened to like at that time. So everybody thought
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of weird because I liked metal. So most of my friends were like online gaming, like that's what was kind of like starting to get big. And SOCOM 2 is like some of my most fun times. I know I mentioned SOCOM 3 because that clan I was a part of where I
Oh
made
yeah.
those really good friends, but I don't know. SOCOM 2, I just had more fun with the actual game itself, like even the story, and like I was just so into it. I spent so much time on that game, like beating all the special missions and stuff to get the special characters.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, it's funny because I said it during the beginning of everything going on these days that we can't talk about, apparently. Um,
We all
I
know.
fell into Fallout 4, like I was saying, and dude, honestly, just like I I felt so into Fallout 4 because like it's hard to say. Like, there's just there. No matter how big of actors you get on so many games, it feels like voice acting is just usually completely terrible. Like, no
Yeah.
matter what game it is, it's not that it's terrible, it's that it's just so cheesy. Like, none of it feels authentic to what you're seeing on the screen. Like, it does feel like you're just not playing something in reality.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of responses, not all of them, but there were a lot more responses in Fallout 4 than in most games that I've played, where it felt more genuine and I felt more connected to the characters. And it was a game that I really didn't want to make the wrong move on. Like, I don't want to screw over any of the groups. I'm trying to like I still haven't beat it because like I feel uncertain where I'm at. I'm
Yeah.
hesitant to keep moving forward because like I think I already messed up and I can't get the ending where like everybody is at peace.
Mm.
And I'm like nervous because I'm like, no, like I don't want anybody to die.
Yeah.
Like I want
Yeah.
to save everybody. Everybody's got their own thing going on. Everybody's got their own reason. Like I get where they're coming from. I just want peace. So it's wild. Like I looked forward to it. It felt more like my real day for a little bit than like my actual days because nothing was going on and I was just sitting inside all day and I was just having so much freaking fun.
Yeah.
So I don't know that for like a weird reason became my favorite game to an extent because I just like it felt like a full-on second life. Like it was the first game where I was just like, yeah, man, like this is my character. This is what I'm up to. Like I got to take this seriously, you know? Like I just
Mm-hmm.
dove into it and like I don't know, it had me so hyped, so freaking hyped. I couldn't get enough of it. And yeah, I kind of want to get back into playing it, but I want to get it on my PC now, but I'm hesitant to start over again. So
Yeah.
what did Umbrella say?
He
Conflict
said,
Desert Storm
yeah.
was the best military shooter game ever. Interesting.
I've actually never
Interesting
even heard of that.
choice. I remember I didn't play a lot of it. I would say something related to that that I played more back in the day was they released a Black Hawk Down video game after the
Hmm.
movie came out.
Yeah.
And that one was actually super cool because that was one of the first games to incorporate different class types alongside like Battlefield. Like Battlefield, I think was the first one to do it. But the Black Hawk Down game, like you could have a medic role, you had like the sniper role, you know, you had to pick like what type of class you wanted to be.
Yeah.
And that one was super cool. One of the first games to include peeking too, which I had a lot of fun with. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Too many good games out there. How do you pick your favorite?
Okay, I think about this pretty often, and I think it's a good point to make. When you're talking greatest game of all time, there's two different routes you can take, because there's like the personal opinion, like what we've been doing, be like, okay, this is my favorite game of all time for X, Y, and Z reasons, and then there's the okay, from a technical standpoint, what is the greatest game of all time from like the influence it made on gaming, the consistent gameplay, how well does it hold up, and just like things like that, because there's totally like personal opinions. I mean, you could have some Joe Schmo on the street and it's like, dude, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone on the GameCube is the greatest game of all time. And it's like, dude, no. Did you ever play Super Mario? You know, it's just like things like that. It's just, okay, personal opinion, best game of all time. And I think that's awesome. I think that's great. But then I think people definitely get too fed up in that. They don't think about the technical standpoint of like, okay,
Yeah.
from a technical side, what was like the impact it made, the legacy it has, and like how well does it hold up, and like what did it do to like change gaming, you know, things like that. And so it's like when I think Red Dead Redemption 2, I definitely think for me it's kind of a good head point where it does both for me, because I
Right.
feel like it has a lot of elements that make it technically a really awesome game. And then for me it also has that personal opinion of where like I said, those emotions and just like the fun I had playing it. I feel like both of those really meshed well. And like you said, Red Dead 2 is not perfect, and I think that's a very good point as well, because they definitely had problems with it, and it's definitely worth like, okay, yeah, no game is perfect. I think it's silly when people are like 10 out of 10 shouldn't exist because no game's perfect, and it's like, okay, well then if 10 out of 10 doesn't exist, then 9 out of 10 would become that standard, and then
Like
just
9 out of 10 is 10 out of 10 then, because that's the highest thing you can get. So it's
exactly.
just that extra number is just a pointless. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. There's got to be something that hits it. Like you can't perpetually wait for that 10-star benchmark to come out because then like well, what the hell's ever going to compete to it anyways? How do you finally decide when you've hit that 10-star benchmark anyways, you know?
Yeah.
Umbrella says Minecraft is the biggest selling game of all time.
I'll say
So
Minecraft is
that
definitely up
is
there.
so true,
Sales number.
man. It's like, yeah, it doesn't mean it's the best though, just saying. No, I totally feel that. I
Yeah.
mean, Minecraft is great for creativity. It's hard to say it captures everybody. I feel like almost everybody has at least tried it.
Mm-hmm.
Most people have. I feel like there's people that'll hate on it and not try it, which is
Yeah.
understandable. It's not everybody's jive, but I don't know. Yeah, can you say from numbers though? It's hard. I mean, when I think
I was gonna say,
not
you say what you're gonna say. I'm gonna pull something up real quick to kind of go off
okay.
that.
Well, actually go for it because I was going to talk about what I would classify as a non-personal greatest game.
Okay. So when you're talking sales numbers and greatest games of all time, that absolutely does not mean anything because Wii Sports is one of the best selling games of all time because the Wii was bundled with
Ah,
Wii Sports. I'm not joking. I'm going to pull up the actual numbers here, but I Googled best selling game. Wii Sports was the first thing to pop up. Um, but
epic. I
yeah,
kind of love that. That makes me happy in its own way because that bowling kind of just deserves it.
we talked about
I
that
mean,
before.
think about it. Yeah, you got to think about it, man. I mean, honestly, does that lie though? Does it lie? Wii Sports might be considered the all-round greatest game ever because
The
name
story was really
somebody
good on that
who
one.
doesn't enjoy it. Like it's
True.
like Wii Sports has been for anybody and everybody. Like no matter whether you like games or not, there's always somebody who's like, "Oh yeah, I guess I'll try that." Like, "Oh, that seems cool to try." Like, "Oh yeah, I guess I'll give it." There's always some
Yeah.
attitude on it of like
Oh,
why you'll give it
totally.
a shot. Like, "Oh, that's stupid. Like, check this out. I can do it." Like
Yeah.
no matter what, somebody has an excuse of why to try it, even if they seem like they don't want to. And
Totally.
there's almost a sport for everybody on there. Like what don't people enjoy from like not what don't people enjoy, but like name somebody who doesn't enjoy at least one of the things on there. And I'm not saying it has to be your favorite game, but you can't
Oh,
deny
totally.
that if somebody is like, "Yo, I'll kick your ass in some Wii bowling," you're like, "Yeah, yeah, you think so,
Bring it
bro?
on.
Break out the nunchucks, man.
Yeah.
Like it's going down." Or not the nunchucks because you don't need the other one, but the
No,
Wiimotes
I got you.
nonetheless. I mean, you can't turn down a Nintendo Wii Sports, battle. Like
Yeah.
that's just the ultimate challenge. I don't care how hardcore you are at anything else. If it challenges you in Wii Sports, you're not turning it down. Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
That's
think
like
that's a
that
fair
big
point.
honcho energy right there.
Yeah.
So it might be accurate. I mean,
That's
it
a
might just be by chance because Wii's were sold, but I mean, name somebody who doesn't play Wii Sports. I don't know anybody that has been in front of Wii Sports and hasn't at least tried it.
yeah.
Like, if it's been there, people have tried it. The only people that I don't know that haven't tried Wii Sports have never been around Wii Sports or even around a Wii console in general. So, like,
You
I
make
don't
a really
know,
good point. It's kind of hard to argue with that, but fair point.
right?
All right, let me give you some
I don't know. The
numbers.
numbers could be legit.
Yeah, let me give you some numbers. So let's go. Uh, I mean, this list has got like 100 games on it, but let's go top 15 best-selling games of all time. I'll say the game and how many it sold.
Okay.
So number one, you have Minecraft with 200 million copies. Grand Theft Auto 5,
Okay.
135 million copies. Tetris on your phone, 100 million copies. Yeah. Wii Sports, 82.9 million copies. Player Unknown's Battlegrounds
Okay.
has 70 million. Super Mario Bros.
Wow.
Is that like classic Super Mario Bros? Yes, okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess so.
Classic Super Mario Bros. 48,240,000. Pokemon Red, Blue, Green, and Yellow, 470. Oh, whoa, not 400. 47,520. Wii Fit, 43,800,000. The original.
Wow, we fit up there.
Yeah, people got to get fit with their Wii. Wii Sports wasn't enough. Got to get a little bit more active
I
with
just
that.
didn't think that many people would get on it.
I,
That's
I
just
have my Wii
like, I
Fit.
didn't know that many people who bought the pad for it and
Yeah,
everything.
I still
I
have
don't
mine.
know. Wow. All
So
right,
got to
fair
get
enough.
fit. Then you have classic Tetris on the Game Boy, 43 million.
Ooh,
Pac-Man, 39 a million, 39,098,000. That's a weird number. And then Mario Kart Wii, 37,320,000. Mario Kart 8,
on the
35
Wii.
million.
Interesting.
Yeah, Mario Kart 8, right? But it's actually one of the best-selling games on the Nintendo Switch, so makes sense.
Yeah, that's the newest one, I think, is 8,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Then Wii Sports Resort. Wow, Wii Sports Resort, 33,130,000. Red Dead Redemption 2,
That was a
32
legit game
million.
too.
Wii Sports Resort was awesome because it had the sword
Mhm.
fighting. That was the
Yeah,
best one.
sword fighting was awesome. I
And
liked the
then,
archery one.
oh yeah, that one was tricky because then you got like the one that was like you were like down the tunnel and you had to like shoot through the tunnel, and then like the wind was blowing too.
Yeah. You had to use the thermals to carry it to get it
Oh
through the hoop or
yeah.
whatever to get the final one. Yeah.
Oh, brutal.
That one was crazy. It was so good. I got like almost like perfect on all of them. I think that was one of them I couldn't perfect. There were like two or
Oh,
three of them that I was always 1 star away from getting it.
yeah. I remember the wakeboarding being a family favorite too. I remember we enjoyed that one because none of us had ever
That one was
wakeboarded before.
interesting.
Yeah, because you'd be
Okay.
like swing out and then you come back and then like triple backflip and it's like yeah right.
Yeah, right. Dude, I've tried wakeboarding and I couldn't even like get on my feet. Like I just kept falling face first. It was so
Yeah.
difficult.
Oh man, I have a
You have
tricky
to
time
like
with
I have some
wakeboarding.
pretty fit legs, but yeah, I don't know, man. Like I would use like all my force to try to keep myself up and I'd still
Yeah.
just bolt every
Ah,
time face first
face
in the
plant.
water.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting because I there's like the wake surfing that's become popular in like the last few years, and it's
Hey.
pretty much wakeboarding, but it's a little bit less intense because you're not strapped to the board. You just have like a smaller surfboard, and you have to have like certain boats that make like a wave with the wake. Because now they have like new ones called
Okay.
like the wave setter, and it like literally like gets like this perfect little curl going on the wake, and and so you're closer to the boat, like you're maybe like 10 feet from the boat instead of like the clear out there kind of thing. Like you're really not that far to the boat. And I've done it sometimes where you like hit the wave just right and like literally you're like right on the back of the boat. Like I could just like jump off the board and like land on the back kind of thing.
Oh,
So but I love the wake surfing. It's so fun. It's just like a lot more relaxed and like you're not going that fast and like it's just super chill and it's not hard to get up. Like anyone can do it unless you're like 600 pounds and I don't know if you could do it. But I
maybe
mean,
not so much.
yeah, probably not. You could maybe figure it out. But one thing that's cool
Maybe.
about that one in comparison to wakeboarding is because wakeboarding you're going so fast, but then also you're like strapped to the board, and I don't like that feeling of being like kind of at the command of the board, like you crash and like your upper body's like, "Ugh," but then you're like your legs are like staying in place and like moving with the board, and it's just not the most like comfortable
Yeah.
feeling. Like I like the wake surfing because like I'm not attached to anything, so like if I need to like bail and like get away from something, then I can just like jump off the board and then like I'm completely separate from the board, something like that. So
Yeah.
it's totally just kind of like a comfort thing for me. But yeah, wakeboarding not
I
my
get
favorite.
you. I'm similar about snowboarding, to be honest. I actually got
Oh
to look
yeah,
something up because since you looked up numbers, I'm gonna look them up because I got to talk about what I think is the greatest game ever. Not subject or not non-biased, right?
sure.
What is it? How do you say it? Biased, non-biased, non-biased opinion, right? Non-biased is when you don't favor something.
Yeah, I
Let's
think so.
see.
I'm
Because
trying to
this
remember.
one, I'm curious if it's not on there because it's not across all consoles. Because I seen ones on there saying all consoles. Sorry, my laptop is like slightly in the way of my screen that I'm trying to look
How
at.
dare you?
Let's see. As of June 30th, 2020, Resident Evil 4 has sold 10.2 million copies across all platforms. Wow, so it
Yeah,
really isn't even that high up there.
I was gonna
That's
say this
crazy.
one's not even
So
on the
the only
list.
reason yeah, because like the only reason I would think that that one would be on there is just because like that was a game that brought people in that didn't even like horror games because like they weren't even viewing it that much as a horror game. It was an action
Yeah,
game, you know? It was almost like a Hollywood game, but it was so weird because Resident Evil and like, Capcom, I should say rather, pulled it off very well.
oh
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, like just so many people bought it across so many different things, and not only that, but the dedication for it across multiple platforms. To be honest, I'm kind of surprised it only sold that little across everything, because I mean,
yeah.
that thing has seen
I mean, I don't even think
Man,
there
that's
was a
crazy. I
Resident Evil
kind of
game
went
on
the
there.
one time. I can't even think of what it was. It was like 8 or 9. There's like 8 or 9 different platforms that Resident Evil 4 officially came out on.
Yeah,
So it surprises me that it's not a higher seller because like
yeah,
I would figure there would be more people buying it on each thing and then still rebuying it. I mean, hell, I bought it
totally.
for PC and I didn't even really get to try it when I got it because my laptop couldn't handle it. Now I could finally try it and I just wasn't vibing it at all. I like played it up to the chainsaw point and I just
Yeah.
like wasn't having a good time with it. I got murked and I was like, yeah, screw this. I'm going back to PlayStation.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
But
don't
on that
know.
list, on it was just like the Wikipedia best-selling games of all time. There wasn't even a single Resident Evil game on there.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me necessarily that the other ones didn't. I mean, personally, I love the Resident Evil series, and I would hope that more people would love it. But like, I get that horror is really niche, honestly.
Yeah,
Like, even
that's
going
true.
for horror as like a company, like that's just a really like all-in risky move when you think about it, because like it's just, you know, the majority of people, I would say, if we're being realistic, a majority of people out there, no matter how much they want to, you know, say they're not scaredy cats, I don't think enjoy horror games. You know, I mean, even look at the
Mm-hmm.
numbers of that. Resident Evil's been out so long and none of them made it. Like, clearly, you know, there's advocate gamers out there. If it's not on there for any of them, then it's clearly, you know, that just, or it's clear that there's not that many people seeking horror and it's just really risky. So I feel like that's kind of why they did go the way they did for four, if anything. Maybe they had spent too much money on the other ones and they were like, we need to try to recover something from not catching as much people on horror. Because I mean, look at Konami. Konami has, yeah, they got Silent Hill, but like that's not their, that wasn't there rather when it was still like their thing. That wasn't their like, you know, big hitter. If anything, I would say Metal
Mm-hmm.
Gear Solid was, you know. They've
Yeah.
got other games, of course, huge titles that hold them in place, but it's really the action. Action is what seems to really hold the most sales when it comes down to things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just can see why Resident Evil didn't really make it in the end as one of the top games in any of them, really. Even
Yeah.
four, I guess, unfortunately.
I can see that. Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely kind of catering to a group audience. And that's one of the interesting things about Grand Theft Auto 5. Because when you really think about it, like hard M games like that are not necessarily a very I don't want to say niche thing, but like you think Grand Theft Auto and you think, oh, that's only for, a select few. It's not going to be for like a very general audience. But Grand Theft Auto 5 is one of the fastest selling entertainment products. And I think it is. I might be totally wrong on this, but I feel like I remember seeing Grand Theft Auto is the fastest entertainment product selling of all time out of movies, TV, video games, like anything, because it made $1 billion in 3 days, and nothing else has ever done that before. And so it was like something Grand Theft
Not
Auto 5.
realize they made that much off of that.
Yeah, Grand Theft
Wow.
Auto
I
5
didn't
was
like
huge.
realize it went like that.
Yeah, it was
Man.
crazy. Yeah, $1 billion in 3 days. And just like something they hit with that game, just like really kind of catered to everyone. I think a lot of it for sure is the online, but like the online wasn't even, I don't even think the online was available in those first 3 days. So it just was like something about that game, just like it must have come out at the right time or it must have just hit something right. I don't even know because it's like I wouldn't
It
recommend Grand
was
Theft Auto
highly
5 when,
anticipated.
yeah, that is true.
I mean,
But
people were waiting forever. That was like the first like next gen release, wasn't it? Because didn't that only come out for like when PS4 and Xbox One were out, right? I don't think that's on PS3.
no, it is. It is. Yeah. So it came out in
It is?
2013. Yeah. It was one of the last things on
Huh.
the PS3 and Xbox 360.
Wow.
And then they
Man,
remade it
that
for
kind of
PS4.
surprises me then.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I mean, either way, it was still such a highly anticipated game. I mean, everybody has, you know, looked at those Grand Theft Auto games for so many years as like some of the top games out there. It
Yeah.
is one of the first like overall open world when you really think about it. Since we're talking open world, it's actually one of the ones I meant to bring up, and it's interesting that it is technically by sales one of the greatest games of all time, with that,
Mm-hmm.
because like yeah, they really pushed a lot of the limits when it came to things. Like they
Yeah.
had the first, like one of the first just full open worlds, and on top of that, like the um I don't know how to word it because I don't want to say like political standpoint, but like you know what I mean, like morality, I guess, like the
Yeah.
overall morale. Like it's the first game to have some like morally, some really morally like questionable, you know, aspects to it, and
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting. It's definitely one of the first games to push out there, and I think that as a whole, it definitely deserves like something. For me, 5 wasn't personally for me, and I think it did sell a lot because it did cater to so many people, but for me, that was why I personally didn't
Mm,
become interested in 5 because like I saw how many things you could do in it, and like I saw like some of the DLC, like even seeing something about like some racetrack or something like in the sky, like I could see why it was appealing, but to me, like I looked at that and I was like, literally, what does that have anything to do with Grand Theft Auto? Like
yeah.
there were just so many things in it that just I didn't understand what it had like literally anything to do with Grand Theft Auto, that I was just like, it's not worth buying to me because there's not really a purpose to it. It's just an all-in-one game that just tries to cater to everybody, and it just made me a little nervous. And then I saw how the online was, and I was like, I can't see myself wanting to interact in that much. So, like, I did, don't get me wrong, I saw why it was cool, and it's awesome that they
Mm.
were able to bring everything together the way that they did and like have such a packed game with so many things. It just personally wasn't for me. Like, I wasn't too interested in it. I thought like bits and pieces from it were hilarious that I seen though. You know, my friend showing me like all the moments with that dude that is always like tweaked out on drugs and stuff. Like that stuff was hilarious. You know, he's always doing some crazy antics. But yeah, I don't know. I just didn't get into that one. It was
Hmm.
an epic one though. I've seen so many great things from it.
And say I can attest to it. I've put plenty of time in Grand Theft Auto 5. I don't even want to try to figure out how much. My buddy and I, when we were in high school, like every day, hours upon hours. Fantastic. We loved that game. And it's definitely it's interesting because people are like, we need Grand Theft Auto 6. You know, it's like Grand Theft Auto 5 was so good. I mean, it's come out it was 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago that Grand Theft Auto 5 came out. And like, it's still so big. Like, you look at like PlayStation's like best selling games of the month, and Grand Theft Auto 5 is always on there. And it's so interesting because it is such kind of like what you're saying is like political, but not always just like political, but it's like the type of humor they used was so like perfect for everything that was going on. I mean, not specifically these, like, everything that's going on now, but just kind of like the world in general, just like with social media and just personalities and just like all these topical pop culture things. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 nailed it so good in 2013, and you play it again and it's still so relevant to 7 years later. And you watch interviews with them and they're like, well, why haven't you started Grand Theft Auto 6 yet? And it's like, because we haven't needed to, because five, like the humor of 5 is still relevant. So it's like we can't really, it's like if something had changed so hard, then it's like then you can kind of commentate on it, and they're what's the word I'm looking for? Parody. There's some other word I'm looking for other than parody, but it's just like the parody they're going for was in Grand Theft Auto 5 is still relevant today, that they couldn't really do anything more with it because it's still relevant. There's no need to. And so it's like, certainly if we get a Grand Theft Auto 6, I don't see it coming for a lot longer until the kind of the political or the pop cultural standpoint really changes enough where they can do a whole lot more work with it, or they do something very timepiecey like Grand Theft Auto Vice City, where it was like super 80s, or Vice or San Andreas, where it was like super 90s, things like that, where they can kind of commentate on those certain aspects. But then also it's like, okay, well, they already did the
It's
80s
funny
and
too.
90s. What's that?
That was funny too, like the like throwback for Vice City. Like I did like that throwback,
Oh, it
and
was
as
great.
much as I'm not necessarily like into hair band music, like I always like was digging driving around and listening to that. It was just so very fitting for everything going on, and like I don't know, circumstantially it was very enjoyable for sure. Vice City is like also one of my favorite games, which is also an open world. So it's not even necessarily that I've like hated on Grand Theft Auto because I love like the older ones for sure. 5 definitely just wasn't like my piece, but it's still, yeah, it holds up. Like who needs 6 when like they literally just keep finding ways to update 5? I mean,
Yeah.
if people are vibing on the fact that it has everything in it, if they can keep finding ways to add stuff to it without making the game, too much to run or something, I mean, why not? It costs so much
Yeah.
extra money to re-release other content and everything. I mean, if you can literally just infinitely keep building on a game, why not? It
Yeah.
saves you guys more money. It's just economical. It's smart financially to do, and it's smarter for the gamer too, because I mean, if you can keep buying extensive content bit by bit, and it's not like you're getting a half-made game. I mean, like Grand Theft Auto 5 does kind of set a new standard when you think about it because the game already did contain so much. Like
Yeah.
we see so many games these days guilty of just releasing like a half-made game and it's the whole thing and then oh, we're gonna give you the rest of the half in 2 years of freaking DLC. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that makes sense, like no, it doesn't. So Grand Theft Auto 5 really allowed you to get a full game experience, and then we're like, hey, we're pretty much going to give you six more games on top of it over time, just keep on buying them piece by piece. And
Yeah.
I think that that's one of the better approaches to DLC. It's not my type of game, but I really respect how they went about it, and I think they did make it a little more convenient for the fans that way.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. I definitely agree with you on that one. And I think a lot of Grand Theft Auto 5's popularity, and I definitely think a lot of sales and stuff come from the online mode, because the story was so big and expansive on its own that I mean, it literally takes 20, 30 hours. I mean, if you're like playing like straight through the story, you can cruise through it pretty quick. But of course, you just plays Grand Theft Auto and just does like a mission after mission. You love screwing around and messing around in between. So like if like a first time through, you're gonna spend it's like so much time like just messing around in the world, exploring, and then doing the story, which I thought the story in that one was great. And so like at the end, you like feel pretty satisfied. And then they tack on this whole new online mode that's free. I mean, granted, you have like in-game purchases and stuff, but like you don't have to pay extra for the online mode. You just got to hit, all right, go online, and then you make your character, and then you're free to go in the online world where it's just like, yeah, you have racetracks in the sky, and they have like different heist missions. You can like group up with other people and go and rob banks, and now they have like they just barely added like a whole new casino that's like literally like a straight up real casino in Grand Theft Auto. And so they've definitely seen the impact that the online mode has had. And I also feel like that may also be a reason why 6 hasn't been made, is because like, well, five's online mode is still alive and still kicking. Like they're adding new content all the time. The player base is so consistent and they're just raking in the money just from the online mode. So it's like, why even bother make a sixth one? Because that online mode is just still kicking. It doesn't make sense for
They
them
even
to.
announced they were
Oh,
sorry.
oh, you're good. I was just gonna say there's no reason to make another one if the fifth game is still so consistently played and updated. And I mean, like I said, they're just raking in the money, and it's like, why stop making money off that if you're making so much and it's so consistently loved and enjoyed?
Talked about re-releasing it for a PS5. We're not talking about it. It was already confirmed that they're
Yep.
doing that, re-release on the PS5 when it comes out.
Uh
So,
huh.
I mean, it already shows you that they're still focusing on it like big time and that it's not really going anywhere. They want to try to hold on to it for sure. And I mean, it does make
Yeah.
sense. So, I'm just curious how the porting of everything is going to go because I think if I remember correctly, an article I read said that you're not going to get to keep your stuff from PS4.
Oh, really?
I'm not
Interesting.
sure though. Yeah, I can't remember exactly how it goes. Umbrella said GTA need to improve their engine. It's years old and behind the times. Hopefully with GTA 6 they start with a new one. That's why I love Sleeping Dogs as it plays so much better. I can't deny
Interesting.
that is one spot that has always made me feel lacking when it came to Grand Theft Auto. I did
Yeah.
feel like its engine was a little under. But that's the thing though. Like, is that's a good talking point because is that what makes Grand Theft Auto Grand Theft Auto? Like, for example, things have evolved so much, and even graphics and character physics and all that. But it's like I don't know. They could have done better with the graphics for sure. So I'm guessing we'll
I don't
see
think I've ever
more
heard
with
that before.
PS5, I think. No?
No, I've never
Maybe
heard
it's just the
anyone.
versions I've seen.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
I
mean,
felt like
even
it looked a little what do you call it? Like airbrushed, I guess. Like everything just kind of looks like a little how do you put it? I don't know. It's missing a little bit of just like lighting, I feel like. There's just something
really.
about it that like some things look dull compared to more modern games. Not that the graphics are bad by any means. It's just like
Yeah.
compared to some games I've seen and like with what they're doing compared to what they've done. GTA always kind of has this almost like action hero or action figure world looking vibe. Like it almost looks like things are a little bit more plastic in my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, and then when it comes to like even the ragdoll, so if you're talking about engine in that way, Like I could see why people would be like, "Oh, people are still ragdolling on PS4. That doesn't make any sense." But to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, that was kind of what was hilarious about GTA to me was, just like randomly smashing into stuff and everybody just ragdolling around, or you getting hit by a car and your character just ragdolls over like a freaking pancake on the
Yeah,
street. Like it was just funny as hell. So,
totally.
um, it really depends, but it was very glitchy for sure. Like, just going through objects and like the collision detection, I think was a bit off with like everyone that I've seen released. But I
Hmm.
don't want to comment too much on 5 because I've only messed with it so much. It's not like I haven't played it at all, but I've only played a little bit of it, and
Yeah,
most of the rest is what I've just seen, secondhand. So,
totally. Hmm. That's so interesting hearing you guys say all this because it's like I've played this game so much, and it's like everyone else I've ever talked to has only had ever like good things to say. I've never heard a lot of these complaints before, so it's really interesting hearing all this stuff. It's because I mean, like Gibson said, like RDR2 like looks awesome, but like plays poorly, and I don't quite get the sense of that. I mean, and even with like Grand Theft Auto 5, I mean they heavily improved Grand Theft Auto 5 over 4, and so it's like 4 had a lot of issues with like especially like with the driving mechanics and stuff like that, and I feel like they really tightened that up in 5, and now people are almost complaining that 5 is too tight on the driving. It's like that doesn't make any sense at all,
right.
and so I guess the big thing is when you guys say that the engine doesn't play well or it handles poorly. Are you saying that the like graphically does it just not fit up to your standards? I mean, like you were saying, it kind of has like this interesting look to it, and it's like okay, maybe that's just like the art style they were going for. It's kind of something realistic, but kind of has like a kind of like a light brush over it or something like that. And then like with Red Dead Redemption 2, like the lighting and the graphics are phenomenal. Like that was one of my favorite aspects of that game was like the graphics. And so it's like, okay, are the complaints with the engine going toward the graphics or like how the game plays itself? And when you're saying on the gameplay itself, do you mean like the gameplay mechanics themselves, or like do you think like the characters like move too stiff, and or like is like the horseback riding not as like fluid as you want it to be? I'm trying to understand because I've never had this happen before, so I'm just trying to see, um, just kind of get some different
Fox
opinions and
engine,
see
interesting.
the
So for
argument.
me, I'm curious what Umbrella is gonna say, and I'm curious. Like, I find it interesting he says re-engine on here. That's my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
as they both deliver. Interesting. So for me, so I'll go into both of those, but obviously I'll have you jump in between on that too, because
Yeah,
I want to
totally.
jump in on that RE part for sure. But
Yeah.
when it comes to Red Dead 2 and GTA 5, like I said, I can't talk much about GTA 5, but my biggest things that I've seen in the past GTAs that relates to what really frustrated me when it came to Red Dead is definitely partially like the collision. Like I was saying, like not only does it seem like you go through certain objects, but even for how modern Red Dead 2 was, like, or especially with how important it was to not bump into people, like the fact that sometimes your character would turn in a wide manner, like the fact that like it's rough that a lot of modern games don't include the original Resident Evil turn. Like you can't just turn in place. Like I get that
Oh
that might be
yeah.
hard to animate, but in Red Dead 2 it sucks that like I'm literally just trying to turn left and my dude does like a mini, like circle, and then I bump into
Yeah.
somebody and then I've got a freaking, like attack warrant on me, and I'm like, dude, like literally I was just trying to turn around and now I have to flee, and now I have to go through all this extra nonsense or pay money to get it taken away. And it was just like, dude, like I can't even describe how many tasks that I had to stop doing because I
Mm-hmm.
accidentally bumped into somebody, or my horse moved the wrong way, or my horse died because like I couldn't control it properly, or like I died because I couldn't control the horse properly. And like it just got to a point where I'm like, dude, like I'm tired of replaying the same thing over and over again just because of like one error in like my character's movement, and like not
Okay.
to say that sometimes it wasn't me just being a jackass, like I'm not a perfect gamer. I've definitely
Totally.
messed up plenty of the times, but like there were times where like I had things on point and I'm like, okay, this is it. I'm finally done. Like I'm finally about to get through this. And then like some nonsense happens, or like my horse trips over a rock I can't even freaking see and is like injured, and then all the dudes ride up on me and I'm dead, and I'm like, dude, I just spent hours on this, like I'm done, like I just can't. And That's what really killed me when it came to Red Dead. Like there were so many great things about it, but there was a lot of collision detection errors that just screwed my game so frequently that
Yeah.
I couldn't stand it anymore. I really couldn't. Like I was tired of always being on the run, especially since I was trying to live as a good guy. Like I wanted to have good karma, and I
Yeah.
was regularly going in the negative on accident, and it started to piss me off because it got to a point where I had like a large negative karma happen, and I can't remember what it was, but it was something I couldn't undo. And
Mm.
I was like negative like 4,000 karma or something
Oh wow.
like that, like something ridiculous. Yeah, dude, like I was like, I don't even know because it took me completely out of my good karma and all that far into the negative
Hmm.
that I was like, what's even the point? Like, how do I become a good guy again? So yeah,
Yeah.
I gave up on Red Dead maybe about 35-40% of the way through the game just because I was
Mm.
getting too frustrated. So
Yeah.
that's my personal thing. I don't know. Let's see. He
Yeah.
says a big thing with RD2 is that people like myself were hoping for a performance mode on Xbox, so play at 1080p, 6 FPS, 60 FPS rather than 4K 30, as this would have made the game better for me. Interesting.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like it was geared more towards the PlayStation for sure, and the
Yeah.
PlayStation has the adjusting frame rates, so I think that's why it might have been locked on Microsoft. I didn't even know it came out on Microsoft, honestly. I thought it was a PlayStation exclusive, if I'm being
Mm-mm.
honest.
Yeah, no, it was
Huh.
Xbox and PlayStation for about a year or so, and then they came out on PC about last year. So,
Yeah, that I think that could be why, because I know it was really big with PlayStation back in the day, and I think they were
yeah,
focusing on that. Because honestly, I didn't even see advertising for the Xbox version of it. I had no clue. I thought it was one of the big selling exclusive titles that, had Sony on that lockdown stuff for the console sales, basically.
yeah,
Um, so if that's the case, like that's the only reason I could see it, honestly, is if they focused on the PS4 more. I don't know. I'm curious if he says anything else, but
yeah.
yeah, that's my opinion on all
Okay.
that. And then I'll go into the re thing, but I don't know if you have anything you want to say first before I jump into that.
Yeah, totally. So it's interesting because when I look at games and performances and stuff like that, I don't find myself to be a very picky gamer. Like I'm playing on like a basic PS4, and it's like Ghost of Tsushima and Red Dead Redemption 2. Like I was already blown away already. So I was like, wow, imagine playing like on a normal thing, And I feel like I'm not super hypercritical of small things like that. It's like, okay, if the game looks good and like I don't need like a super like 4K ultra like realistic, thing. Like I just don't feel like that's what I need. And if I get that, awesome. But like if I don't get it, then I'm not gonna be like upset about it. So it's like, oh, the game's only at 30 FPS. I'm not like, oh darn. I'm just like, oh well, 30 FPS is good enough for me. It's like that's still pretty cool. Anything lower than that, it's like, ah, bummer. But it's like, wow, 30 FPS is pretty good. Like I honestly don't think I could ever say that I was playing a game and I was like, wow, 60 FPS, and like I knew for a fact it was 60 FPS, and I was like, wow, oh my gosh, like this is so much better. I probably couldn't even be able to tell you the difference if I were like, maybe if I were like seeing like side by side and like see like, okay, here's a 30 FPS and a 60 FPS in the exact same situation, then I'd be like, oh, okay, I can see the difference. But just for me, it's just like, I don't necessarily am worried too much about those details. It's like, okay, does the game play well and does it like actually like work? And it's like, okay, cool. The frame rate doesn't dip in certain moments. I mean, things like that. I'm like, okay, yeah, I got to keep an eye out for that. But it's like, I'm playing on hindered hardware because like I said, I'm playing on like a basic PS4. I don't even have like PS Pro or anything like that. And so it's like playing like Red Dead Redemption and like Grand Theft Auto. I was like, wow, these games look amazing. Like Ghost of Tsushima. It's like, wow, this looks amazing. Just things like that. It's just like the frame rate wasn't like a big thing for me. And so I see you say you're an FPS guy rather than graphics, and I think that's awesome. I think that's great. Let's see, 60 FPS. Yeah, interesting. It's just like something for me is like that's not necessarily been a big focus of like when I critique a game. It's like, okay, if there's like major frame rate issues, like you're playing like Breath of the Wild and you're like floating around on your paraglider and like the game's like like kind of stutters, and it's like, okay, I'll notice that. But like if it's performing better than I would expect it to, I'm probably not going
Oh,
to notice it.
Jesus.
Getting side attacked. But it's just interesting.
Somebody's knocking at the door, I think. That's why.
Oh, gotcha. Let's see. Evil Within seemed clunky compared to RE2 and RE3 Remake. Yeah, that's interesting because it's a completely different company for The Evil Within. I mean, Capcom had nothing to do with it. I mean, Tango Games is completely separate and is a totally different thing. And so it's like different teams. And like if you're talking like the original Evil Within, that was the first game that company ever made. And so certainly it's not going to be the smoothest thing. I mean, it's probably they're working with a new engine that they've, like if it was like their second or third game and it felt that way, then that would definitely be a little different. But is like where the Evil Within and Resident Evil are two completely different companies. Yeah, same guy, but different companies, different teams, different budgets, things like that. Then it's kind of a tricky comparison to make because they're just so different. I mean, I was gonna say apples to oranges. It's just like one's completely different than the other. Granted, they're same styles of games, but it's kind of hard to compare them when it's completely different situations. It's like saying like I'm trying to think of a good example. It was like, oh, it's like Fall Guys plays terrible in comparison to Call of Duty. It's like, okay, well, they're a little different. It's hard to make comparisons like
I
that.
think it definitely depends on the games for
Yeah,
sure,
for
right?
sure. And I'm trying to think of like a little bit of better of an example. Because I feel like Fall Guys and Call of Duty are two completely different types of games, but it's just like the budgets and the situations are completely different for each of them. I mean, Resident Evil 2, they had big awesome teams from Capcom to like throw money and people at that they could easily work with, and they had this awesome engine that's really great. And then like I said with Evil Within, I don't know a whole lot about the development of the game, but I know it was Tango's first game. Shinji Mikami just like barely left Capcom not long after, and they started making the Evil Within, and so it's just like very completely different situations. It's like, okay, Resident Evil 2 and 3 Remake, they just had so much money to throw at it. And even Resident Evil 3 Remake, it still didn't perform as well as Resident Evil 2. I mean, they used the exact same engine and a lot of things like that. And there was still, I mean, it was a very minor experience in comparison to Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2 just it was a very well polished game. It wasn't a perfect game for sure. I mean, it has its problems, but I feel like Resident Evil 3, if they would have even taken that extra time, that really could have kicked that one up to the next level. And it's like you had the time and the money and the people. It's like, why didn't you do that? You know?
I can definitely see what he's talking about when he talks about the difference between Evil Within and Resident Evil 2 for sure. Like even the new re-engine stuff, just because, like honestly, I gave up on the first Evil Within. I had a
Yeah.
blast with it, but like because of how it controlled, it was so difficult compared to like what I was used to playing. Like I just couldn't keep up with it. It's not that I couldn't keep up with it, I just didn't want to. It was too frustrating. Like it was more
Hmm.
frustrating because it felt like you're trying to control a dream than like the game was actually difficult. Like it felt like that you feel like you can't run or punch in your dream type thing, like you just felt like you were like lagging or like you're trying to run underwater. Like even turning, it's just so clunky and Evil Within. Like I totally see what he means when he talks about engine stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, Evil Within's still a great game, still a great challenge. I loved Evil Within 2. I was actually able to beat that one, not pleb status, but still plebbing on one, still didn't beat that one. But like even with two, as great of a game as it is, like I can see what he means for sure. Like
Oh yeah.
it can be frustrating not being able to move properly. I still feel iffy on the re-engine though. Like as much as I love the re-engine, I don't know. Like I still feel like there might be other things that perform better. Like to be honest, as much as I hate to admit it because it's my favorite game series, the re-engine is a little bit guilty of what made me not like the 360 when people would say that the 360 looked better. And that factor is because the reason I always thought that the PS3 looked better than the 360 was because it didn't seem like games looked better. It just seemed like everything was more shiny. And that's what I feel like the re-engine does. I don't necessarily feel like things look more realistic. I just feel like they make everything glisten. So it's like, oh, it looks real. So like I mean like you can be looking at a concrete wall and it's freaking glistening like it's got a glass case over it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I don't like. That's why I didn't vibe on 360. Like yeah, things looked more vibrant, like things looked more futuristic, but it didn't necessarily look more real because things that shouldn't be shiny were shiny. And like I mean like you see blood in the game and I mean, it's like literally shining pure white when you're in the middle of darkness. And it's like, it's
Yeah.
not, blood doesn't look like that just because there's light on it. Like, you have to be shining like an LED light on it for it to look like that. But anything will look like that with an LED light.
Yeah.
Um, So like, don't get me wrong, Regions is impressive. Like, dude, the games look so sick. The new
Oh
games are
yeah,
great. There are a lot of great textures. Their use of the polygons and everything has been great for like shaping and everything looking natural. Better effects, better movement, better vibes on everything. The atmosphere is excellent. But I would say that I don't think that it actually looks as impressive as it seems like it might, just because I feel like they add that shininess to everything. Like I felt like everywhere I walked in Resident Evil 2, everything is glistening, and it's like, bro, concrete walls don't glisten. You can have light directly on it. It doesn't glisten, it's just a big blare of white light. So that was my killer for the re-engine. But it's not necessarily the killer. Like it's not a killer.
it's
So
just an
that's
issue
just
you
why I
have.
don't know if I would say it stands as like one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, even looking at like Bethesda or Bethesda, however you say it, I
I
don't know.
say
I say it
Bethesda,
differently
but
depending. Yeah, so like, they have amazing games and like, dude, like I said, Fallout 4 might be one of my favorite games, if not my favorite game. I'm uncertain, but like, dude, I'm not gonna lie, like I'm sorry to say it. I really feel bad to say it because they're awesome games, but dude, for next gen consoles, their games look like shit.
oh
Like
yeah.
Bethesda's games look bad.
You
Like
know
they do
why?
not look like they are on these freaking consoles.
Because
It's
they've been using the same
I don't
engine since
know.
like 2003. The only thing they've done is changed like a little bit of like the lighting and the model, just like the technology's improved. But it's literally the
Really?
exact same engine they've been using since like 2003 or four. It's like the
And for
sandbox
how
engine.
laggy it can get too, it's poor. Like I mean,
Yeah,
like the for how downgraded everything is, like I don't know. Like it's just the functionality isn't poor. Like for how low the quality is, I feel like every time I hit a checkpoint, I shouldn't have that like PS3, Xbox 360 level of like do like it's got that stutter of like saving really quick. Like
yeah,
there are games that go through that smoothly where you're like it just saves the checkpoint, you keep moving, nothing happens. But like I don't know, every time I'm playing any sort of Bethesda game, like I'm always getting that lag or the game stutters or it just I don't know. Things
yeah,
look very dull. Like I'm surprised with Evil Within because Evil Within is one of their better looking games and I feel like it's not one of their bigger franchises overall compared to some of the other things they've done. So
yeah. And to
it's
say Bethesda's an
definitely an
interesting
interesting
one.
play.
So Bethesda's an interesting one. I'm really glad you brought up Fallout and Bethesda in general because I think people definitely get a little confused because there's Bethesda Game Studios, the people that make Fallout and Skyrim, and then there's Bethesda, the company. And so there's Bethesda Game Studios and Bethesda Publishers. So there's like I said, Bethesda Game Studios. That's the one that you're playing like the Fallout. And you're like, wow, this engine is terrible, and that's why Fallout and like Elder Scrolls games have such a heavy modding community. Is because the engine is so weak. It's so easy to manipulate and move. And I mean, like Fallout 76 is such a disaster because that engine was not made for an online game like that. And so there's that. Then you get games like Doom and Prey and oh, maybe not
Yeah.
Prey, but like you get games like Doom and Wolfenstein. There we go. Doom and Wolfenstein that use the ID engine, which is one of the better engines I've seen because it's so like the graphics are amazing and it runs really well. And ID engine is fantastic. Like Rage uses that one too. But then you get Arcane Studios, so that's like Prey and Dishonored and things like that. And they have their thing, and it's such an interesting engine because it's got like a very art, like a hand painted art style to it that just makes it really stand out. But like as an engine itself, those games and those worlds are so interactive and choose your own adventure that I feel like it works really well for that situation. And so it's
Uh,
tricky because it's because you get people like, oh, Bethesda, and then they kind of group everything that Bethesda's done to one thing, and it's like, okay, well, Fallout 76 has nothing to do with the people who did, because like Fallout 76 came out, but people were like, wow, Bethesda sucks. And then like Prey or Rage 2 was coming out, and people were like, don't play Rage 2, it's made by Bethesda, and it's like, no, that's completely different people. It's just because it's got that publisher's name on it now that people associate those two things together, and it's like they have nothing to do with each other than they're published by the same company. It'd be like if like
okay.
Bully had like a sequel and Bully's sequel was like really bad, and they're like, oh, Rockstar. Oh, okay, maybe that's a bad example because Rockstar publishes Rockstar games. Let me think of a better example.
I feel what you mean by it though, for
Yeah,
sure. Like I
totally.
didn't realize it was separated like that, so that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think
Huh.
it's a good
It
clarification to
sucks with
make.
that.
Yeah, because
Like Fallout's great.
yeah.
It would be great if they were made under like the same type of like structure and everything and same engines and stuff. Like, 'cause I didn't
Yeah.
realize they were separated that way, and that could make sense why they're so drastically different between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I never realized about that before.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, and it's I mean I hope I also don't want to like seem like I'm trying to like argue with everything, you know. I feel like I kind of have like this argumentative tone and I don't want to be like that at all. But
No, that
yeah, I was definitely kind of got like super like declarative and be like, "Hey, just so you know." And I don't want to be like a know-it-all or anything. But anyway, sorry. Um
No, it's good to know because I mean, like, I didn't
totally.
even know that, and that's like interesting to know because like I didn't realize that it was like such a separation under the same name. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to learn stuff like that because I mean, like, I love games and I know like a lot of different things about them, but there are specific things about studios like that it just kind of blows my mind. And I've been realizing it more, especially like trying to find us like our topics to post on our Discord and everything. And I'm like, oh, I
Mhm.
got to make sure it goes into the right section and.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make it all too long because we've already got a bunch of sections, but then like there's huge games that are coming out and they're on like developer teams I've never heard of before, and I'm just like, wait, what? Like, how is this such a big
Yeah.
game? I've literally never heard of this development team. So, there's so many things going on with it, and it's really interesting to learn about these offshoots. So that's
Totally.
definitely cool, and it puts some of the pieces together.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really good to clarify, and I it always bums me out, and that's why I kind of got like a little bit more like into it, is because you see like things like Rage 2, I thought was a really solid game, but it just kind of came out at a weird time where people were really against Bethesda for something like the people at Rage 2 had absolutely nothing to do with Fallout 76, and people were like, "Don't buy Rage 2 because it has Bethesda's name on it," and it's like that's not true at all. And just because
Interesting.
yeah, and it's like same thing with like Wolfenstein Youngblood. Not an awesome game for sure, but kind of same thing. Kind of came out about the same time as Rage 2, and so people were still kind of up in arms about Fallout 76, and they're like, "Oh, it's Bethesda, don't buy it." You know, and it's just like that's not fair because it's not even the same thing. And so it's frustrating because it's like I think their game's absolutely worth playing, but people see that Bethesda name on it, and it's like, no, that's not the case. It's like, look, you know, and so it's just a good clarification to make because yeah, a whole lot of people don't know that. They just see the Bethesda name and they just associate it with everything else with it, and it's like, okay, there's a little bit more to it, and so it's good to know for sure.
Totally guilty of that. Like, yeah, I was totally unaware of that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to jump to what Umbrella said, by the way,
Yes.
too, because
I
he
keep wanting to
mentioned it a
get to
bit
him.
ago, and so he mentioned that he rates Evil Within 1 and 2 over Resident Evil remakes, which definitely I find interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, they were over the remakes, yeah, I guess so. I don't know over two. Two like still doesn't stand up to the original Resident Evil 2, but
Yeah, but
to
it's a
say
solid
that
game.
the Evil Withins are better than the Resident Evil 2 remake, I don't know. The clunkiness of the Evil Withins makes me have to disagree on that one.
Yeah.
But I do admit that the Evil Withins definitely packed a lot more content and had a lot more to offer than the Resident Evil 2 game, but
Mm-hmm.
um, the Resident Evil 2 remake definitely played better, I think, so I have to favor it in that aspect. But definitely I can see what he's talking about.
Yeah.
As for the Fox engine, man, I can't even freaking deny that. I guess like I've fallen out of a handful of the Kojima games as of late, so it was harder for me to pick that one out, I guess. And I kind of forget that they run their own engine as well. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, Metal Gear Solid 5. Whew, that's an excellent looking game. I still have the regular PlayStation 4, and even on there, it's
Yeah.
super solid, excellent.
I'm in the same boat with that one.
And then yeah, and then when it comes to the Death Stranding, that one looked excellent. I have not had a chance to play it yet, but it looks great. That was one I wasn't sure if I was going to try it first. I wasn't planning on getting it, but I've heard a lot of great things about it, so I think I will move to it eventually. But haven't had a chance to play that one yet. Umbrella, I'm waiting for you to stream it. I'm hoping to see it on your end because you said you picked it up. So let me know if you're doing that. Even hit me up for a share play, dude. We could chat on PSN and I'll watch you play or something. But I want to see what's going on with that game for sure. I'd just rather watch it through a streamer I know.
Totally.
So I can't comment much on that, but totally agree with Metal Gear Solid 5. Crazy awesome looking game, like excellent. Even overall engine for performance, like collision detection, mostly good. A little bit of iffiness here and there, but um, I don't know. I would say it stood up as like a standard Metal Gear Solid 5, but they added a hell of a lot more to it that made it more advanced. Like physics-wise, engine is crazy for sure. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Have you played either of those?
I actually have a lot to say about it, so that's good. So with Evil Within's and versus Resident Evil remakes, that's an interesting one because, and then also speaking of greatest games of all time, I actually think The Evil Within 2 is probably one of the better games I've ever played. I just really, that was another one that I just like really got like emotionally into and stuff like that. That I was just like so into it that like I almost didn't even want to finish it because I was so into The Evil Within 2 that for me I'd actually probably say
Yeah.
it goes like Evil Within 2, Resident Evil 2, and then Evil Within 1. I definitely think The Evil Within 1 is a really cool game on its own, but it just didn't age particularly well and it wasn't like super solid when it did first come out. It had a lot of really cool ideas and stuff, and so I'm really glad they did make a second one because I feel like they were able to expand upon those ideas and make a really solid game that I feel like I just particularly really enjoyed. So yeah, for me, I'd say Evil Within 2, Resident Evil 2, and then Evil Within 1. I just feel like Evil Within 2 had that story that just really got me into it. I really loved kind of the semi-open world of it that just really kind of kicked it up a few notches for me from Evil or Resident Evil 2. So that's my thoughts on that. But yeah, for sure, Resident Evil 1 and 2, or 2 and 3, interesting, cool remakes, but Evil Within 1 and 2, definitely worth checking out for sure. Very underrated games as a whole. And then Fox Engine and Kojima Games. So, I mean, I completely agree with you on Metal Gear Solid 5. You really nailed that one with Metal Gear Solid 5. Super awesome engine, really good. Like, it runs really well. Maybe not always the best, but it for how expansive and how much was going on in that game, it handled it really well. And like you said, basic PS4 still looks amazing. There's so many like small details and like moments that I was just like, wow, this looks amazing. And a lot of that same stuff could be saved for the Death Stranding as well. I loved Death Stranding. It was my favorite game that came out last year, and it is definitely one of the better games I played, and that definitely comes a lot from the story aspect and the world building because that game had like this crazy world and it was so cool and interesting. And it's definitely a really very different game, and it like looks amazing, and it's just something very unique. And like thinking of like one of the greater games, it's an interesting one because it's so unique and different that I wouldn't say it's one of my, like, if I were to like technically say like greatest game of all time, I don't think I'd really, I don't know. Death Stranding is such an interesting one because I loved it so much, but like from my critical standpoint, it's like it's not for everyone. Like I couldn't go up to some person and be like, "Dude, you got to play Death Stranding," just because it's such like a it's such like a interesting, like gameplay wise. It's just it's not for everyone, and it's unfortunate because like the story and the world of Death Stranding is phenomenal. I loved it. Like after it came out, I made this video that was like 40 minutes long talking about the story and like spoilers and everything, and it was like one of the best things ever just because I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't know anyone who had done it. And so I was like, dude, I sat down for 40 minutes and talked about it with myself in front of a green screen. It was so awesome, and it was very unfortunate because it was such a cool video. Like I feel like I had some really solid like kind of thoughts on the story and stuff like that, but just like the way this kind of the situation when it came out a lot later than I wanted it to, and so it didn't get quite the attention that I was hoping it would because I really wanted to have some like cool and interesting conversations with people about it. But then it just like came out at a bad time that didn't happen. It was so unfortunate. But yeah, Death Stranding's a
Drop it in
really
the
interesting
Discord,
game.
man.
What's that?
Drop it in the Discord
I
under
might
the
have
under
to.
the section, dude. Get some convo going about it. Because yeah, I'd be curious to hear a bit about that for sure. Most definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, I really want to know more about Death Stranding. The big thing that actually got me to not want to get it when it first came out was how vague it was, because like the only things they showed about it were just like the most odd things out there. And like we talked about last time, like I don't enjoy things when it seems like they're just trying to go for shock value, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like as much as I love how, Kojima makes things like totally crazy and has these elaborate stories, the fact that it felt like they were expecting all of these pre-orders just off of like shock value trailers of like, wow, look at how strange all this is, and you have no idea what's going on. I was like, why would I want to pay $60 for that? Like, I literally don't even know what I'm paying for other than Norman Reedus and some ghosts and a baby. Like,
Yeah.
I had no clue what was happening before the game came out. So I was like, I'm not going to give them $60 when I literally don't know what I'm buying. All I seen is him walking around with a giant backpack and a baby hiding from ghosts. Like, literally zero idea. So,
Yeah.
uh, now that I know that there's like a bit more of a structure to the story and I've heard a little bit about it, like I do want to try it for sure. Like I've heard it's great and I'm like, okay, like now that I've heard, that it's worth a shot, but I couldn't pre-order it with the lack of information. I just
Yeah.
couldn't. Like it wasn't worth the money.
That's a fair decision for sure. And I mean, that kind of goes back to pre orders in general. It's like, how do you sell a pre-order like that, especially on a game like that too, where the story and the world itself is something so big and important that you can only really tell so much about it, that it's like, man, trying to sell, like make a conscious pre-order decision on something that you don't really know a whole lot about is a very interesting pre-order situation. Because yeah, you want to make a good, when you're pre-ordering a game, you're like, okay, I know that I'm going to get a solid game that I'm going to love and things like that. And I think that's definitely one thing that I have a hard time with pre-orders about, is it's like, okay, I'm pre-ordering this game, I'm committing $60 to this game that I don't even know if I'll like. And that's kind of like it's a hard sell in pre-orders in general, and that game specifically, definitely a very hard sell.
Definitely out there for sure. Definitely had some weird concepts. I think it was cool. I feel like you needed like an attention grabber after that PT situation though, for sure. So,
Yeah.
definitely an interesting move. Or well, it was an interesting move by Konami rather. Like I know they needed to recover from the whole PT situation with the split. So, I don't know. I mean, I think that it looks like a great game. I think the engine works well for it. I think that they finally like built up to something that can handle a game like that. So I do want to try it and see compared to Metal Gear Solid 5 because like I said, the engine runs it well, but I'm curious in comparison. Like Metal Gear Solid 5, we didn't need much of a story build up. 4 was a mess in my opinion, but I mean, it's Metal Gear Solid, who isn't going to get it? I actually
Yeah.
bailed on 5 the first time I played it. I
Yeah.
stopped like when you had to ride the horse and all that, and I was like, I
Mm.
have no clue what's going on, so I quit. Um, but then it turned out to be an awesome game, I found out later. So I feel like I'm gonna find that with the Death Stranding as well too, you know? Like I just kind of maybe judged it too early or something. So
Yeah, I
I'm
think it's a
excited to
hard
see.
one. It's a hard sell because I mean, like when I did my review for it, I had a whole lot of praise for that game, but it's just like it's not a game for everyone, and that's the really honest truth. I mean, you hear that a lot, but I feel like that game is such like a specific. This game is not for everyone, just from a gaming standpoint. Like the story, it's like it's. I love the story and the characters in the world. I thought it was fantastic, and like the actors did phenomenal jobs. Like everyone did so good in that game. And there's one specific, oh my gosh, there's two specific moments at the very end of the game that I would love to talk about, but like hardcore spoilers, and I don't want to get into it and ruin someone's day. But there are one specific moments, and I've interacted with this guy on Twitter a lot because he did so freaking good in this specific moment that I like. As soon as I finished that game, I tweeted at him. I never interacted with him or knew anything about him before, and I tweeted at him and I was like, "Dude, that moment in Death Stranding was so powerful." And he like responded, it was like super cool, and it was awesome, and I loved that having that interaction just because it made it so personal and awesome. But it's just like that game had
Yeah.
so many amazing like story moments and just like production and everything that was so good. But like from a gaming standpoint or like a gameplay standpoint, it's just not for everyone. It was so unfortunate because it was like for me, I really enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed it, it was like one of the coolest things ever. And it was just so unique and different. But like as like a casual gamer, somebody that's like played Call of Duty every day for like the last 40 years, you're not going to like it because you're just not into slow games like that. And that game is a very slow game. But I loved it because it gave me time to reflect on the story. And I definitely feel like the story and the world was the most important thing in that game. And I feel like the gameplay kind of complemented it because it gave me a lot of time to reflect on what had happened and what was going to happen and just kind of the everything in itself. And so it was a very interesting experience that was just so unique and different. And I loved Death Stranding. Like I said, it was my favorite game that came out last year, and I really wish like more people would have given it a try. And maybe the gameplay you didn't like it, but at least you gave it a try. I think it's absolutely worth trying because you might really surprise yourself. And I mean, not even you specifically, but as a viewer, if you've never played Death Stranding and
Yeah.
you're slightly curious, I'd say give it a try because you really might end up liking it. And if you hate it, then at least you tried it.
I wanted
So,
to mention earlier too, I totally freaking forgot when we were on the topic of Grand Theft Auto 5 that so many games lack these days, and I think it was awesome that it happened in an open world game too.
yeah.
We are missing multiple person stories.
Mm,
I am tired of all these games with just one player that involve so many other major role characters. I want to see what the hell is happening in other people's stories, and I'm tired of it being like side DLC or like, just that extra content or something you have to unlock, or it's just this little mini
mm,
game at the end or something. Like I want more full stories on people. Like
yeah.
that was one thing that even kind of bummed me out about Resident Evil series. Like it was cool that there were multiple stories on, both people's ends, but I didn't like how technically only one was canon and one was official, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I want a game where you're seeing both sides of the stories to the same conclusion, you know?
Yeah.
I just don't feel like we get that on a lot of games, and I feel like that's one of the more recent games to actually allow you to choose multiple different characters in a story. And yeah, I really wish we could get that. Like one that didn't even have it that way, but one that was even still cool because you could choose between a few different people's was like Mercenaries. That was a fun open world game where you could
Yeah.
choose between different styles. And I know that's a whole other ball game, but man,
Totally.
I really wish there were more overlapping games like that. Like it would be so cool to have more ideas of what's going on in other areas, like while you're doing certain things. Like
Yeah.
Resident Evil had great opportunities for that, but they didn't execute it because depending on whose story you were playing, you still did certain overlapping parts that like didn't matter. Like for example, like you could cover boarding or you can cover windows with boarding and it affects the other game. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, it's like both people are literally finding the same keys and having to unlock the same doors. And it's like, wouldn't for one of those people, half of those doors already be unlocked, or some of them, or at least one of them? Like if the
Yeah.
boards are affected or picking up certain items affects the game, like it just didn't make sense. Or the fact that like, the original Resident Evil, that it's either you play as Chris and Jill is locked up the whole time until the end, or you play as Jill and Chris is locked up the whole time till the end. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I want them to have their own separate things where
And
like
they
they were
bump into each
having
other.
those chances by fate missing each other. Yeah, and then like they just happen across each other or something. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I feel like overlapping stories are cool and switching back and forth, getting those moments to see different perspectives. And so many games just lack that these days. You focus on one character and that's the only character that truly matters in the end, or you get these other big characters that just fall off. Even Dying Light would have been cool, man. So many other
Yeah.
professional characters you could have played as,
I never played that one.
seeing the other side of it would have been cool. No, highly recommend it. It's really, really interesting. I don't know, like, so I get why some people don't like the parkour aspect of it, but I think it's cool to just be fully on the run from zombies, just jumping across roofs like a ninja,
Yeah.
especially when you get the grappling hook. Like, you literally
Oh,
get
very
to, like,
cool.
ninja level that,
That's
like
awesome.
tossing the grappling hook up there and flying up. You can even get a ninja outfit at one point, and that's what I
Wow.
always run around in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I always thought that was fun. So, yeah, I don't know. I really hope that that's something that does make a big comeback at some point because it's a lot of fun to have different sides of the story. I would say Resident Evil 3 did it, but it was so short, like who even
Oh
cared, you
yeah.
know? Like you did get a couple parts where you switch back and forth, but I mean, it was just so irrelevant even compared to the originals. Like Carlos's point or part was so short and like it was linear. It was so linear. Like it only took as long as it did because you have to literally backtrack all the way across the hospital multiple times and that's it. Like
Yeah.
it's still super easy. It's super simple. It's a breeze. Like it doesn't count. It doesn't. It was so half-assed. I feel like we need more of that making a comeback.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Resident Evil 2 because I remember when I did my review on it and kind of the same time I was looking at a lot of other videos too, just see what people thought, see if they shared similar ideas. And yeah, certainly there was a lot of like they could have really smoothed out a lot of continuity things and making it so like certain events affected other people. Like if you did Leon first and you like had you like come to a room and it's like super trash and you're like, whoa, what happened here? And then you like play as Claire and you get to that room and you have like a big boss fight and like trash the room and things like that could have been really interesting to see like certain events on each end affect another. And also like with the items, it's like, okay, there's only so many items in this police station, and like if you play as Leon first and you collect all the items, then you get to Claire's story and all of a sudden you have no items because Leon already picked them all up. Something like that could have been really interesting, and made like a kind of a little bit more of a survival aspect to it too, that it's like, I'd love to pick that up, but I'm probably going to need that later with Claire, or something like that, or whatever you put in the item box, the other person can use as well. So you could kind of plan ahead that way. But yeah, I definitely feel like they could have taken advantage of certain moments to really build upon and make some really interesting cross moments of story and interesting gameplay situations like with the items and things like that. But yeah, I think it'd be really cool. And I definitely think that having it as an extra DLC is fine, but having it part of the game could really kick up the value of that game itself.
Yeah. It's just like I feel like there's a lot of games that even say they're going to do things and they don't. Because thinking on this, there are a lot of games where like I read that there were supposed to be things like this, and even Resident Evil is one of them. And granted, it's not Capcom, but nonetheless, it's not like Capcom has capitalized on it. But I remember I was really excited when they were talking about the release of what is it, Operation Raccoon City, because they were saying that things that you did in the game would affect the rest of the story. Like, oh, if you lock this door, it affects something later. Or I remember reading things about Army of Two when it was first coming out, about like how you'd have to take breaks to use the bathroom and how you'd have to eat and how you'd have to like heal your wounds with like things like in your environment. Or
Yeah.
man, wow, there's another one I was thinking about. There's another one I just thought about that was more recent. I can't think of. You're supposed to be able to do things that you couldn't end up doing when it was released. But anyways, like I'm just tired of like all these promises. It was for the not like Dawn something, that horror game where you're the kids in the mountaintop.
Oh, I have no clue.
You know what I'm talking about?
Uh-uh.
Until Dawn, the
Okay.
the one where they're yeah. So like, and that one they were talking about how like if you lock certain doors, it affects other characters later or something like that. And I played through it, and it's like, yeah, depending on what you do, changes the outcome. But like, I haven't played any game where doing something as one player affects any other player later on or anything. And
Mm-hmm.
I just really would crave that, like
You know,
having to think about your decisions before you make them.
I think that's a really good point you just brought up because we talked about Death Stranding, and Death Stranding has a thing in it that is all about that. Because as you're going through the world in Death Stranding, you're connected to like the internet and items you place around the world. So like if you get to like a cliff and you like use ladders to go up, if you leave the ladders there, whoops, excuse me, if you leave the ladders there, they pop up in someone else's game. So you're like walking around, and all of a sudden there's like ladders leading up this cliffside left by another player, and so then you can use those
Interesting.
and you
That's
can like
super
leave them like
cool.
likes and stuff like that, and then when you get back on your game it's like, oh, this many people used your ladder and like you got this many likes, and or like,
Huh.
oh cool, you contributed materials to this bridge, and then someone else contributes materials, and then all of a sudden now there's a road. And so Death Stranding was really cool
Super
about that,
cool.
not so much from like a
Wow.
story aspect, but like from a gameplay aspect, it was really awesome because like you, as you were going around the world, I remember there was one point when you had to get to the top of this mountain, and like all these people had gone one way, but I went another way, and I found like a whole new like side way, and like I had like ropes and ladders and everything leading up to the top, and then like I was able to like leave signs and stuff to kind of help guide players to that area. And just like it was really cool as you were kind of consciously going around and thinking like, okay, how could I help myself out and in turn help someone else out. And it was really interesting, so I'm really glad you brought that up because it ties really well with Death Stranding.
I mean, honestly, since we brought up Metal Gear Solid 5, that's even something that was great in that game too. Well, kind of great. It depends because it worked against you, but I thought it was really cool how like depending on if you were to go on missions at night more likely or if you were going for headshots more, like their gear would adjust to that. So if you go on night
Oh
mission
yeah.
more, like they start having night vision goggles all the time. If you go
Hmm.
for headshots all the time, they start wearing helmets, like reinforced helmets. If you shoot them in the chest a lot, they have reinforced jackets and stuff. So
Yeah.
one of like the really only like surefire ways was the freaking dart guns, and even that still, it's like you gotta hit them on a soft spot, otherwise it doesn't matter. Like if you don't hit them in the face or the arm or something, like it's not gonna do anything, and hitting them in the legs or arms still alerts them. So you pretty much like if you want to be perfect with adjusting their gear, you always have to get a headshot with it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's rough, and I
Hmm.
thought that was super cool. There were a couple other things. I can't remember what it was. Like I know it has to do with like depending on what partner you bring in and like depending on what type of weapons you're using, things like that. There's so much to it, and I thought that was really cool. Even the wind effects or like the sandstorms, you can't extract people if there's a sandstorm going on because they'll get lost. Like all that was
Mm-hmm.
really cool, and I just feel like we're at a point in gaming where we should be seeing more of that, especially with a lot of open world games. Like
Yeah.
they're, man, games are just slacking these days, honestly. Like I feel like companies have gotten too comfortable with the whole DLC thing, and they know they can
Mm-hmm.
make the money off of that, that they're not putting in time like with games like, Metal Gear Solid 5 or even say, Grand Theft Auto 5 or Death Stranding, like there's so many things and little features and just all these cool little tricks games can put in, but they're just lacking that creativity. It's just like, here's this game, you're gonna run down this path, you have these many enemies every single time. If you make it difficult, you get this much exactly more damage done on you, and they have exactly this much more health, and like nothing changes. There's no variables. It's the same game over and over again, just slightly adjusted stats. And
Yeah.
like, why? You know, it's the year 2020. We're about to be on PS5 and whatever letter of Xbox that we're at this point, and it's
Xbox
just
YZ.
like, yeah, exactly. XYZ box. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's I just feel like there should be way more going on. I mean, especially, and I have to show I'm genuine. I have no problem ripping on one of my favorite series. Like literally Resident Evil 3 and the Resistance bundle is just the biggest spit in the face of like all these companies. It literally shows you the mentality. Like we wanted Resident Evil 3. Most people did not care about Resistance. Most people don't play Resistance. Like
Mm-hmm.
it didn't matter, and that was supposed to be the compensation for having such a highly anticipated just shredded into like a quarter of the game. Like what?
Yeah.
It just shows like they just want that quick buck. They want that quick release, that quick excitement. Look at this flash, now buy it. Hey, guess what? Now buy the rest of this stuff later on. Like
Mm-hmm.
dude, honestly, I would be more happy if they released an update with I'd pay for DLC to get more Resident Evil 3. Update
Oh,
the
yeah.
game, sell it as DLC, and I'll buy it.
Oh,
Because you know
yeah.
what? I want a hell of a lot more than I got. I don't care about Resistance. I'm not going to give Capcom extra money because of Resistance. Everything I do in that is going to be free to play if I keep playing it. Like, it's just so much laziness and slacking and lack of creativity and just disrespect to the community.
Yeah.
I don't know. Games are just so dull. Like, where is that cool stuff like Konami's doing with all these little factors, you know? I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah, no, and I think games like Death Stranding and I think God of War is another good example of it. Of just like well-crafted games that like have a lot of polish. Maybe they didn't appeal to everyone in every aspect, maybe it's not like the most I think Death Stranding specifically, it's like maybe it's not the most highly praised game of all time or the highest selling, whatever. But it was such a unique game that it really stands out and it's like, wow, there is no other game on here. Like I can't even think of another game that's like Death Stranding and just like unique aspects like that are definitely I definitely agree there's not a whole lot of creativity and I think indie games are some of the best places to look for that because those are the people who are like spending their entire day just working on this one game. I mean things like Undertale or Hollow Knight and just things like that are like okay, and like Soviet Jump Game I think is a good example, maybe not like the perfect example, but just like indie games like that where it's like developers have these interesting ideas and they're using it to their advantage to create a really awesome game. I mean, Undertale was something so unique and different that it really stands out. I mean, Hollow Knight is one of the best Metroidvania games because it has interesting ideas and uses it to its advantage to do something cool and creative. And then Soviet Jump Game takes a formula that you're familiar with. Everybody's played Mario, but have you played a battle royale Mario? No. I mean, it takes
Yeah,
ideas that are
right.
familiar and that I think that's the thing with like Hollow Knight with Metroidvania. It's like okay, you've played Metroidvanias before, but have you played Hollow Knight? Like it really stands out. And then like I
Yeah.
said, Soviet Jump Games. Everybody's played Mario, but have you played Mario like that? It's such a creative and different experience. And so I think indie developers, certainly, if you find an indie game that looks interesting, try it out because 90% of the time it's probably going to be way better than something Resident Evil 3 or, the next Call of Duty that you're going to get next week because the other one just barely came out yesterday. It's those indie
Yeah.
developers are the guys that have the passion for their game that they're making. Like they quit their job because they had this game idea and now that's the only thing they're doing is because they had this idea and they want to stick with it. Like they're giving all their passion towards this game and this idea. So it's maybe not going to be the perfect
Oh,
game because they don't have a budget that, Capcom does, but they have the passion, they have the creativity ideas to make something
it's
interesting.
all heart. It's
Yeah,
100% heart. It's got to run
absolutely.
on it because most of them aren't getting paid. Like even like that site I mentioned earlier, that IndieDB stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so many creative people on there with these ideas. Just like, hey, like I know, like it sucks, it's unpaid, but like let's get it, you know. And honestly, I feel like that's why PlayStation took off a little bit more than Xbox is because I felt like they offered a bit more of a platform for indie gamers, which I thought was interesting. But
Hmm.
I can't deny though that is kind of what bummed me out was I felt like there weren't enough like solid standard platformer games of just like knowing you had these big companies behind them and like It's not that I don't think indie games are good. It's just like sometimes I want some intense stuff, and like
Oh
I feel like
yeah,
a lot of indie games can look very kid oriented or kid friendly, or it's just very simplistic and like sometimes and not sometimes, but it's just like I don't know. There's something about having a next gen console. I can only play so many things that look subpar
yeah.
before I'm like, okay, literally, why the hell did I spend all of this money to play something I feel like my last console could have played? So, I mean, that's just personal preference. I
Oh
know I
no, I
probably sound
totally
like an
agree with
ass
you.
saying that, but yeah, it's just like there's something like I do want those high-end games because I do want to know that, like, I mean, we're in, even if it's 2014, I mean, we've come so far. Like, I want to freaking see,
Yeah,
that sometimes or more often, and I felt like I was constantly getting lost in the PlayStation store on just like indie games that just look like just I don't know, just very subpar. And like, don't get me wrong, I appreciate it, I get it. I couldn't vibe on it for the most part. So I kind of slacked on a lot of games on newer consoles because it's like I've already got my classics. If I want to play old school looking stuff, like I'll just launch up my PS1, PS2, or PS3 games.
yeah,
Or even like Nintendo games and stuff. Like I've still got all that. Like there's only so much of it I can bear. Even like Fortnite stuff, dude. Like that stuff still even drives me crazy. Like it's cool here and there, but dude, look at how much is consumed in the new gaming industry with this like Fortnite look. Like everything looks
yeah,
like it's out of a comic book, and it's like, yeah, that's cool for games here and there, but it literally, what's the point of hitting these next gens if everybody's literally just gonna start making stuff look like it's from the 90s, but just a little more flashy? Like, don't get me wrong, I love the 90s, my favorite freaking generation, but like, dude, I'm buying these next gen consoles for their abilities, not to freaking, play with Legos, basically. So I don't know. That's
yeah.
one picky thing. And before I forget, I have to say really quick because it has to do with my game I said is possibly my favorite game. Well, sort of in the series, because I mentioned SOCOM. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the first games to ever actually have crossplay stuff like that, which was really cool, was SOCOM, dude. And I forget about it because SOCOM 3 on PlayStation 2 and Fireteam Bravo 1. SOCOM 3 and Fireteam Bravo 1 and SOCOM Combined Assault and Fireteam Bravo 2 had overlapping missions. So if you did thing in one game, which was funny because the Fireteam Bravos were on PSP, so you had to
Mm,
connect the PS2 and the PSP, sync your game data, and if you did certain things in one mission, it would take care of things you had to do in your other one, or like
mm,
reinforcements wouldn't show up in certain spots, or you wouldn't have to detonate like certain things, or like artillery that would typically be firing at you wouldn't be, like all this cool stuff. And I thought that was the sickest thing ever. And like,
yeah,
yeah, total ploy to make you buy two different consoles, but
totally.
it was cool. So I
But
don't
it's a cool idea. Yeah.
care.
And
Yeah, it was
yeah, totally. Okay, so real quick, Umbrella Gibson asked where do you donate? So if you want to support the show with donations, there's a link on
oh
the About tab that says tips accepted. You can just click on that image and it'll take you to that. Or it's like streamlabs.com/press start underscore to play. I might be totally wrong on that URL, but that's there for you too. Maybe I'll have to set up a
yeah,
command
much
for
appreciated on
things
that
like that.
too.
Yeah, so seriously, donations are super awesome, really beneficial to the show, really help support us as people and help keep the show going. So yeah, so if you're wanting to donate, help support the show, that is a way to do that. Um, so yes, answer that question.
More cool little characters made too.
Yes, exactly. We can get different poses. So we can start.
Yeah, well, we got to get some gear going on, hats and shirts eventually.
Yeah, so absolutely, if you're willing to donate, very appreciated, but of course not required. But yes, so that's the way to do
Of
that.
course.
Um,
You just got to save your game content by following.
yes, exactly. And don't forget to follow. And if you're on
Yeah,
YouTube, subscribe. um,
of course. But yeah, of course, that's appreciated big time.
definitely.
Let's see.
Wagwan. I don't know what
Hello,
that
thank
means.
you for joining. Appreciate it.
Welcome, welcome.
But
Airless
yeah, man,
Square.
so many cool different things with games, man.
Totally.
I was glad that Umbrella jumped in the way that he did, and it's funny because he keeps mentioning with FedEx guy with what do you call it? With
Death
Death
Stranding.
Stranding, and you
Yeah.
couldn't be more accurate. It's literally
Oh,
like just
totally.
climbing through the freaking mountains as a FedEx dude. I just kind of imagine like current times and just literally that being what FedEx is doing at the moment, is like trekking through everything. So,
Yeah,
no, it definitely looks sick. I think that's so cool with that overlapping game content, though, man. I'm really
totally.
excited. I want to find games I could play more with you guys, though, especially because, like, I know Umbrella's on Xbox, so we're having a hard time linking up on
Mm,
stuff. And then
yeah.
I know you're not online on PS4. I feel like that's another thing we need more of though too, especially with open world stuff. And I actually wanted to bring up the game earlier. I'm glad I remembered because Wildlands, man, that's the one. Yeah,
Okay.
Wildlands, dude, the processing. Because we were talking about the engines. I forgot about that because it makes me think of SOCOM. Sorry, I'm on these chain of
Oh,
thoughts
you're
and I
good.
keep remembering things from earlier. I'm trying to make sure I don't forget them again. So I love Wildlands. It was like open world SOCOM,
Mm-hmm.
but it had processing issues. So like you're constantly, it's processing such a large area, you'd get
Mm-hmm.
that glitchy stuttering, and I hated that because it was such a great game. But it was an open world game that had co-op, and I thought that was
Mm.
great. And that's another thing. I feel like there is not enough co-op again these days, and I
Oh,
feel like we need some
dude.
more of that going on for sure.
Seriously. Yeah, couch co-op
Even
is
if
the
it's not
bomb.
couch like I would
Yeah.
love couch co-op. More couch co-op would be great, but like I just feel like it's either like where you're my enemy or it's nothing. Like either I'm playing single player or I have to go attacking people from around the world. Like where's all the
Yeah.
teamwork stuff, man? Like I want to work with people again. I miss that. And
Mm-hmm.
that was why I liked Wildlands a lot was because you had to be tactical and work together as a team and communicate and all these factors that just made it like I don't know. It was a real challenge to work together with each other and like be really careful. But the big
Yeah.
downside got repetitive. I
Mm.
can't deny Wildland was repetitive.
Yeah, and
Oop,
I think it's
sorry.
interesting too because Death Stranding, another it keeps coming back, but I think it's another good example of that. Like I was saying, you have those factors where you like place items around the world and help other players out. So it was kind of like a co-op game, but like it wasn't at all because you were playing by yourself. And the whole point of that game was connections. You see interview with Hideo Kojima, and he's like, it's all about connections. And that game was really a very interesting connective experience because you're not playing online, but you are because you're helping other people out. Like I said, I was like setting up pathways and things like that to help people out. But you never run into other players. You never see anyone else out and about except for enemies when you're running around the world. But like you see traces of other players, and so like it felt cool because it was like, oh, cool, I'm playing online, but I'm not. And so Death Stranding was
That's
another,
the poor way No Man's Sky started.
yeah,
Like they had the things like you could do things and it would affect the other player's world. Like people could claim planets and galaxies and stuff, but you couldn't see each other for the longest time. And that kind of was a bummer because they promised that you could. I think
mm,
it's interesting with Death Stranding because the fact that you're all supposed to be the same character, but yet you're interacting like you're in a world where there's other people doing the same thing and you're not the same character. So that's one of those things where I take away realism points, but I do think it's awesome as if
oh
like that's
yeah,
so cool to link up that way. Like I just wouldn't even care. Like
oh
that's just me
totally,
being picky, but and that's like no, that's so freaking cool. Like that's so epic to be able
yeah,
to affect other games like that. Like wow, that's wild. I guess 76 for Fallout does a little bit of that too, though. Like I
yeah,
always wanted to play that because I thought it was cool how you could like literally set up trap rooms to just like mess people up in and take their gear.
yeah.
Like as much as that stuff sucks, like that's super cool to be able to be
Just the
creative like
idea,
that and have like an open world game. Yeah. So I'm
yeah.
hyped to be on PC now. There's so many games like that. I started playing Sea of Thieves and
Oh,
that's
interesting.
a blast for co-op. Yeah, we had 4 people going the other day and like we
Nice,
did
man.
this little treasure raid and it was pretty sick. It was a lot of fun, big
Cool.
time.
Yeah, that was kind of one of those ones that like when it first came out wasn't its full potential, and it seems like they've updated it and added to it to give it to its full potential. So that's awesome. And I don't have
Wow.
Xbox, so I can't play it, but the idea is cool. But
Yeah, honestly, I really liked the 4 player aspect of it too. I thought there was going to be more though, but I'm glad that you can at least get up to 4 because too much you get left at just two players, And
yeah,
I really like the group mentality, like of getting then again though, group mentality, oh my God, Among Us, bro. You don't want the
yeah,
group mentality there. I'm so sick of getting freaking launched out when I'm innocent just because
yeah.
somebody is freaking pointing finger at me and they're usually the murderer themselves. Oh
It
my
was
God.
them.
I don't know if that's crowd mentality. That's mob mentality.
Yeah, that's mob mentality at its finest.
All I know is red vented.
Yeah, there you go. Oh
Green
man,
did it and red vented.
there you go. It was all
Yep,
Green's fault.
it was. It was. I
Green's super
love having
sus.
the, yeah, right? I love having the combination colors where you're blaming other colors and your like name is that color as well.
Oh yeah. You're like it wasn't me, but it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's all
I'll
confusing.
tell people it's me, honestly. I'll just be like, I did it, even though I didn't, and then I'll see if they'll just vote me out if I say I did it. And then
Interesting.
usually people ignore me.
I haven't tried
Dude,
that.
honestly, it works better. And when I'm innocent, I say I did it, and then people just think I'm trolling all the time, so they'll just ignore me. And then I'm like, all right. And
Huh.
then like nobody messes with me because they just don't expect me to
Yeah,
comment. Or I'll comment that every time. Like every time something happens, I'm just like, I
I
did
did it.
it.
It was me.
Just kidding. I'll either say I'm kidding or not. Sometimes it depends, but like usually it works in my favor. Like people
Huh.
just think I'm messing around and nobody even like tries to mess with it after that. It's kind of funny.
That's awesome. Well, we did it. We hit the 2 hour mark. We're doing good.
Damn.
I guess on
Well,
you is
actually,
for
I gotta
the
get
five
ready to
minutes.
head for
Yeah,
I have to head to that meeting in a bit, so I guess that's a good time to call it because we did
totally.
talk about so much. I mean,
Oh, dude,
so many
we've been
great
all
topics.
over the place
Yeah,
today.
sorry. I was distracted for that 1 second because I was actually trying to bring up the time and see what was going on,
Yeah,
and keep an eye on
2:38.
traffic. But yeah, it's this was a good one, man.
This was
Definitely a
really
good
awesome.
conversation. So many awesome game topics, like so many different types of worlds and methods overlapping with like,
Mm-hmm.
specific ideas we were talking about. So super freaking cool.
Yeah.
Definitely enjoyed it. Glad you finally got to talk about your Red Dead
Oh,
game.
yes.
Um,
I didn't even get to talk about
man, I'm
all of
excited
it.
for
We jumped
Yeah, I
off.
know, right?
I was on the high
We'll
dive and
have
you
to
pushed
talk
me
more
off.
about it again. I'm sorry. Well, there's so
It's
many games to
okay.
talk about. We kept just like switching
Dude,
everywhere
it
and
was all over
it was a
today. I loved
mess.
it.
It was. But yeah, we'll definitely have to talk more. Or we'll even do a part two if anything. It doesn't always have to be one episode. So,
Totally.
Umbrella, if you're there, man, you should jump in on the next one if anything. Let's
Yeah.
get you in on it so you're not just like commenting on it in the background and hear what you have to say because we're
Yeah.
all streamers. You guys are, of course, much further into your streaming careers than I am, but I think it'd be great. Like you guys are always on different content. I love watching both of your guys' individual shows. So I think it'd be cool if we were all on here chatting, just regular
Totally.
gaming. He's been talking about Death Stranding. I'd take a backseat driver session and listen to you guys talk about it and all the cool stuff and get me hyped to try it out, and then I'll see if I could sway you on some of my games.
We'll do it. We'll do a Death Stranding spoiler chat and you can
Yeah, right?
Oh, that'd
Oh
be
man,
awesome.
I'm just gonna have to sit in there and have everything ruined.
Yep.
Oh man.
Oh
Well,
man,
everybody
good
seems
stuff.
to be jumping out, so I think that's the point to cut it at this point.
Oh
But
wow. Yeah.
yeah, it
Five
was
to two.
awesome having everybody in here. Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
right? Everybody's ready for us to dip. So,
All right.
anyways, it was awesome. Great
Yes.
content today. So many,
Yes, yes.
so many good conversations, great points, and yeah, I'm looking forward to picking this back up, talking more about it.
Totally. Yes. And thank you guys here on Twitch for watching. And if you're watching later on YouTube, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. All that good stuff. Help us out. And for people on YouTube, there's a link. There's links all down in the description of ways you can help support the show, help support us, check out our individual content. And we got a rockin' Discord going. Taicho is the man on the Discord, dude, killing it. Probably the coolest Discord out there. All thanks to your man. So go join the Discord. There's actually a link here on Twitch, and I'll have to add one on to the YouTube channel too. So get in the Discord. It's good
Yeah, it's
stuff.
fun. It's been a lot of fun. Looking
Yeah.
to squat up in there and everything too. Definitely share your gamer tags, select your
Yes.
roles, let everybody know what you're on. Connect, have fun, be friendly, be kind, but let's have
Of
some awesome time
course.
gaming. Share some more in the fun. So,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks again,
Awesome.
everybody. Don't forget to follow so you can save before you quit. Don't want to lose that progress. So,
Agreed.
yeah, thanks again.
Awesome. Hey guys, you take care. We'll catch you guys next time.